this talents video, not to be confused with the A through Z challenge where I play every single character. So I'm going to go through every single character and their talents, and I'll include thumbnails with names. So you don't have to watch the whole video, you can just go to the character you like. I'm going to also be giving explanations on why the talents are good, and probably two or three builds depending on some of the characters, if they are versatile, for instance, like Li Ming and Sonya. So let's get started. Abathur is the first character. So what makes Abathur such a strong pick in the meta is how much he can buff hyper carries. He's very weak in the early game, but once you get ultimate evolution, I feel as though your 5v5 is usually much stronger than theirs because the clone is more useful than a regular hero. So level 1, 80% of the time you're going to be taking Reinforced Carpus. Abathur is a character that doesn't really get too much value out of any of his other level 1s. The other 20% is if you take pressurized glands, and you'd only take this if you want to buff an illidan and you don't feel like there's too many threats, or just in general any hyper carry that you don't feel like there's too many threats to burst you. But most of the time the shield's always better. At level 4, most of the time you're going to be taking Adrenal Overload. The only time you're going to be taking Needle Spine is if you just have absolutely no characters that can auto attack and get too much value from it. Prolific Dispersal is also a decent talent if you can't get any value from the attack speed. Most of the time it's one of these two, and I'd say again 80% on Adrenal Overload. Level 7 you should be taking Mule about 95% of the time, and the other 5% is in some niche situations like Cursed Hollow where you feel like you can get value out of this talent, and you're just very confident that you won't need to Mule because you, for instance, just know maybe you're in a party with a 5 stack and you really trust your team or whatever, and you don't need Mule. But 95% of the time, it's Mule. At level 10, always ultimate evolution no matter what. You just put your team in such a deficit if you take monstrosity. There's just no point in not taking this. One of the mistakes I see a lot of the time is when you don't have good clone targets, it's not a bad idea to clone the tank and just soak as much damage as you can. For instance, like an ETC clone is actually pretty strong because you just double up on the CC and you can just isolate one person with the double Ws. So it's pretty good um, when you ultimate evil the tanks. So going deeper down the list, at level 13, Soma Transference is what gives your carries that 1v9 potential because you're able to just give them like such big heals. If they're in the middle of 5 people, like you know that Genji or Zeratul at level 20, you give them the really big heals. At 16, the best choice is usually Adrenaline Boost because it helps your carries or anybody in general get out of sticky situations. Locust Brood is also kind of decent if you know you can set up a split push with Hive Mind at level 20. But that's only in really niche situations that you know nobody's going to be able to stop your push. Otherwise, Adrenaline Boost is always the pick. At level 20, Hive Mind has insane value. The only time you do not take Hive Mind is if you are buffing some kind of carry that can really use the max percent shield. For instance, I play with an Abathur player. They're the best Abathur on NA. They take Evolutionary Link when they are cloning my Sonya because they know that the shield it gives me is so insanely valuable. And when you have double Sonya and the main Sonya and the clone are both alive, you can pretty much kill the whole team. On other characters like Zeratul, you can make use of this talent as well. But on Genji, I think Hive Mind would be better. And in general, if you don't have like if your clone target's like a Jaina or Li Ming, Hive Mind's probably better as well. Because once your clone is down, you need something to, some value outside of the clone. So moving on to the next character, we have Alarak. There are actually two builds. Everybody thinks that the only build you can take with Alarak is the E build, but I've seen quite a bit of a resurgence with the Q build, but there's slight variations in the talents you're gonna. So the standard E build is just all the lightning talents. and you take Applied Force at 7, and Deadly Charge, no, not Deadly Charge, I'm sorry, Counter Strike at 10, and to my surprise, I'm seeing a lot of Rite of Rakshir, but I think Blade of the High Lord, even with E-Build, is not bad. You can just pull their tank in and start auto-attacking them. Getting this 40% sadism is really easy. And if you think about it, you lose the sadism from pure malice on death. I know a lot of people take that, but I don't think it's very valuable. And 16, you obviously go E. And 20, you have the option. Honestly, Hasty Bargain and Last Laugh aren't bad choices, but most of the time going for double ultimates is good. You take Counter Strike at 10 and Deadly Charge at 20. You could combo them together as well if you Deadly Charge into the whole team and get a really good Counter Strike. Now the Q build that I was talking about. Level 1, you go Sustaining Power. I see a lot of people taking Ruthless Momentum with it. But the thing is, Sustaining Power is a lot more valuable than people think it is. I just sometimes just get an E off on 2 people, and that's like a third of my life, which is like insanely valuable. Level 4, you have options. If you're one of those Alaracs that don't think you're going to get too much value from your E, you can take Show of Force. However, the way I use it, I'm just using E on cooldown with the Q build, so I always go Chaos Reigns. And the reason for that is your E becomes a sustain tool with this level 1. You're not really like using it just for the value of Show of Force. You just want to put it on cooldown. It's a 6-second cooldown, and it's a pretty big heal when you take Sustaining Power. With this build, however, I go Hindered Motion at level 7. I know that Applied Force is like the main talent people take, but for some reason when you take this level 7, you generally have a much easier time hitting the Q. What ends up happening when you take Applied Force, a lot of the times they can just scoot to the right a little bit and dodge it. But with this talent, it really augments the Q build. At level 10, you go Counter Strike as usual. Level 13, Blade of the High Lord. And level 16, you go Lethal Onslaught. When you combine Blade of the High Lord with Lethal Onslaught on Q build, you start doing Qs late game that do 1100, 1200 damage, and it makes your auto attacks do 600, 700. So it's really, really strong combination. And you're ensuring your Q lands because you're going Hindered Motion, which will give you all this bonus damage on your auto attacks, and it keeps refreshing. So you actually can become sort of like a mini tank killer. I'm pretty sure your auto attacks do more damage than Greymane and Worgen. Um, but that's like if you have some sadism from kills. And 20 with that build, you're probably just going the double ults. Hasty Bargain isn't bad either, or Last Laugh, but I don't like these two that much. So Alexstrasza, and I had the pleasure of playing with the best Alexstrasza in NA. He actually goes both the builds. So the scaling build, the build if you want to scale into the late game and you know they don't have too many threats, is Circle of Life at level 1, Surge of Vitality level 4, Verdant Flourish at 7. You go Cleansing Flame 90% of the time, and Lifebinder in niche situations that you know you can get it off. The problem with Lifebinder, even with overtime heal, is a lot of the times you'll Lifebinder someone and they'll just die, and you just wasted an ult. And when you have an ult like Cleansing Flame that is so incredibly valuable, and it almost just wins the fights on its own, especially combined with the dragon, Cleansing Flame is just so insanely valuable. And the best Alex in NA always takes it. So level 13, you have two options, but a majority of the time, people always take Pacify at 13, just because the slow and reduced damage is so potent, and you can get it off cooldown pretty easily if you have really good mechanics and you heal someone with the Pacify passive effect. Life Unbound, you can see some use if you have some beefy tanks that are always in there because it does AoE damage and it heals, but generally Pacify is better. It's just a shrink rate on a 60-second cooldown that can become a 0-second cooldown if you get like the passive effect twice. Level 16 with this build you go overprotective, and the reason for that is the other two options just aren't that good when you're going the W build. It's kind of like how Deckard Cain always takes the potion talents that give shields. It's just like shielding's really nice. If Tassidar's base stats weren't so low, he'd be, you know, always in the meta too. Level 20, on Ruby Wings is generally like 90% the best talent. But if you have some really good players on your team, I think there's some situations where you can go Blessing of the Red. For instance, if you have that Genji on your team who's just always 1v9ing and winning you all the fights. 500 bonus health is honestly nothing to scoff at, and giving it to 4 people is like insanely valuable, which is like insane. Obviously, if you know that like people are just gonna die, I mean, late game if anybody dies at 20 anyways, you probably lose a lot anyways. But the bonus health, like losing it isn't like the biggest problem. Now going on to the second build, we have the Q build. It's live and let live at level 1. Level 4, you have the option. Most of the time you take exuberance with this build. Otherwise, you go heat exhaustion. And people only take this talent just because they're really good at hitting the E's. And a 60% slow is way better than a 40% slow. It's almost like CC in itself. Even 40% is almost like CC. But 60% can like help your other players on your team hit like crucial skill shots and CC. And at level 7, you're taking Life Blossom. It just goes with the level 1 wall that recharges quickly and now has no cost. Level 10, you still go Cleansing Flame. Level 13, same conversation that we had before. And level 16, Tough Love is generally the best option. Sometimes I've seen people go Draconic Discipline with the Q build. I'd say it's pretty close. It's basically preference, whatever you think you'll do better with, because it's not really defined. Because 20 armor for 2 seconds isn't that impactful. But 7 seconds on Dragon combined with this 20 can be pretty useful. And then at level 20, you just go on Ruby Wings again. Next we have Ana. Ana is the best healer in the game. You obviously know in my tier list video I put her at S+, and the top on the S+. So what makes Ana so potent is this grenade heals like a decent amount. When you combine it with her grenade talents, she becomes extremely potent. Like we have this meme in Grandmaster. When an Ana throws a grenade into a dog pile, we just say, oh, they just got ancestral healing. Because that's like literally what it feels like sometimes. So level 1, you are generally going to take contact healing 95% of the time. The other 5% is vampiric rounds, and I'm not even recommending it. If you just feel like it's useful for you, you can take it. But this talent is completely and utterly busted, and you should take it every game. Level 4, you have the option to go biotic enhancements and debilitating dart. A lot of people think debilitating dart's really bad, but using it on like a frontliner, for instance, like an ETC or a Diablo, just a slow, it's basically a shrink rate if you hit them, or a Sonya. It just gets so much value, and I know that this talent reduces the cooldown of grenade, but it actually got nerfed the last patch, so debilitating dart, in my opinion, is the better talent at 4 now. Level 7, you take anti-healer just because you can do some very high skill cap things. I've seen tons of times where an Ana just stopped an ancestral healing with this talent, and I just think it's insanely valuable. Either of these two talents get you too much value. At level 10, Eye of Horus is actually a decent choice. I'm not saying you pick it every match, but if you just absolutely feel like there's nobody that can get too much value from your nano boost, Eye of Horus is not a bad talent. It basically gives you a global AoE heal or like an execute if they're extremely low. You just snipe them with the bullets. So you take nano boost if you have good targets, but if you don't, Eye of Horus is always a decent talent. At 13, it's pretty self-explanatory. You never take speed serum because it just increases the chances that you will miss your own heal, which is Pepega. At 13, generally, if they have a good amount of slows and roots, this is what you always want to take. If they have a stun tank, one of the main ones like Diablo, Garrosh, or ETC, even if they have a lot of slows, smelling salts is honestly pretty decent because what'll end up happening is they'll be slit and they'll be in the middle of the team. So even though you remove the stun, they're still kind of in a bad situation. It's the armor that makes this talent so good because they're in such a bad situation. At level 16, you have the option of taking active reload and sharpshooter, but I think that the value from active reload is always better, and the reason why is that if you can just stop that crucial death from happening with this talent by just getting 3 Qs off instantly and saving that person's life, saving a death is like more important than a gimmicky talent that honestly resets every time you miss. And honestly, most INA players don't have higher than like a 50 to 60% hit rate on their Q heal if it's like an intense fight and characters are moving a lot. At level 20, if you have certain characters like, you know, Nano Malthael, Nano Kerrigan, Nano Fusion is not a bad choice. Even like a Genji with Dragon Blade 20 upgrade, basically every time they swipe, they're healing for like a third of their life, which is extremely good. Deadeye is good as well. It's honestly not the worst sound in the game. There's some situations where you don't need dynamic optics, but if you don't have a case situation to take Nano Infusion, like what I said above, where you have just a 1v9 character that still needs healing but can still kill everybody if he stays alive, you generally take dynamic optics. And this character, I mean, this talent gives you so much power when you're in aim down sights. It basically makes you do a lot of damage, and also at the same time, it's safe damage because your range is so much higher. So you honestly become like a mini DPS, which is like kind of nice. I mean, people think it's a troll talent, but it's not bad. Now moving to Anub'arak. Anub'arak was S plus tier before the last patch, and now he's S tier. Reason why is, and I said this in my video before, is the other tanks have decent matchups into him. The one biggest misconception is people don't think you can throw Anub'arak in on Garrosh, but you can, and you force his E out. A lot of the times what you'll end up seeing is that they won't want to use their E and they get chunked to half-life and then they E out anyways. Also, ETC was A tier, has a good matchup into him as well. So moving on to the talents. At level 1, you generally most of the time want to be taking Nerubian armor. The Beetle build was good before, but it got nerfed, so it's no longer reasonable. If you know they don't have that much spell power and they have more auto attackers, Regen Master is not a bad talent. It actually makes you incredibly tanky. It used to be the meta talent before the W build got buffed. In fact, nobody took Nerubian armor, like I'd say a while back before the spell armor changes came through. Level 4, what makes Anub'arak such a menace in this game and why everybody just wants him banned forever is Shed Exoskeleton. You always take this talent no matter what, 100% of the time. There's never a situation where you don't take Shed Exoskeleton. And the reason why is this is what gives you the opportunity to just go E in, Q the backline, and okay, everybody, all 5 people are hitting you, you just shield and just run away. It's that simple. And your shield is basically like a 2-second cooldown once you get the level 7 talent, which I'll go over. So you just have an infinite 30% movement speed, which is insane. Level 7, you take Chitinous Plating, and this talent just basically makes your shield always up. So you have a permanent 60 spell armor and a permanent 30% movement speed. Wow, Anub'arak is in Cancer. Level 10, you can't go Locust Swarm anymore. There was like a very, very niche build when you had no damage with the beetles. But now that the beetles are dead, you always go Cocoon no matter what now. And even when it was okay to take Locust Swarm, it was still only like 5% of the time at best. So even though Cocoon got a 10-second nerf, it's still the best talent you can take. Level 13, I think that the best talents you can take are Acid Drenched Mandibles and Urticating Spines. So most players take Urticating Spines, but if you feel like in a game you're just getting so many auto attacks off for whatever reason, your E lets you proc the Anub'arak basic attack bonus damage, and that gets you like 3 auto attacks on its own. And then the Q also gets you another 3. I'm pretty sure if you could just get 2 or 3 auto attacks off, you're doing the same damage as Urticating Spines. But generally, I'd say this talent is better 80% of the time. And this is better when you need like single target damage on someone that you could just auto attack. For whatever reason, if you're like for some reason focusing the tank, if like your team comp has been killing the Stitches the whole game and your game plan is to kill the Stitches, you take this talent over Urticating Spines. But I'd say it's more 70-30 on these two, 70 being the Urticating Spines. Level 16, you have 2 options. So if they have like that Jaina that just one-shots everybody late game and you want to go on her, which is what your job should be, you know, cocooning the healer and going on Jaina. Even with your W shield, she might just like, you know, throw all her spells on someone else right before she dies. So this talent has like decent value. 50% for 4 seconds is nothing to scoff at. But if there isn't that spell power threat that you want to dive, Epicenter is a decent choice. It makes hitting your E way easier. And the CDR is kind of nice. You're generally hitting 2 people usually. 2.5 second CDR and greater impact area is pretty good. Level 20, generally you're taking rewind 95% of the time. The other 5% is hardened shield. And the only case I'd make for taking hardened shield is if you really feel as though you need to just be in the middle of their whole team for a while. You have one of those team comps where you have all backliners, like for instance 4 backliners, like 3 ranged and a healer. Um, and you know even with your double stun, you're not going to be able to one-shot someone because your comp's like slow damage. In those really niche situations, Hardened Shield has a place. Otherwise, Rewind's always better. Now moving on to the next hero, Artanis. So generally you want to be taking amateur opponent most of the time. It's just the best talent on the tier. The only way you take reactive parry is if you have a feeling that you're just gonna die no matter what in a bad matchup and you need this talent. Seasoned Marksman just doesn't scale well. It's just amateur opponent is always 150 from start to finish. So when your auto attack damage goes higher and higher, it's still 150%. So it's just always amplification. So generally, it's always the best talent in general. Level 4, it's not always Shield Surge anymore. So you take Shield Surge in those situations where you can get bursted pretty easily, and you need to do the whole Artanis beam thing where you just get your shield at the very last second with 1 life and then do it again and again. But if you're against a certain team comp that they just aren't breaking your shields in general, like very slow damage or they just don't want to hit you, and it's very niche, I'd say like 15% of the time, this talent can actually have a place. So it's not the worst talent in the world, but Shield Surge is usually the favorite talent to take 85% of the time. At level 7, you have 2 options. Level 7, you usually always go Warp Sickness, but you can go Follow Through on certain maps. Like for instance, Battlefield of Eternity, you want to get like even more damage on your auto attacks. It's not that bad. Because what will end up happening is you're just auto attacking and then the Immortal does its thing when it spins and then you Q, so you get out of its range, you come back, another auto attack. It's pretty good. But I'd say warp sickness like 80% of the time, another 20% being BOE or for whatever reason that you need like to take objectives faster. But this talent basically just makes your swaps like 40% better because someone can layer CC or their skill shots much easier. So suppression pulse is generally what I say. You need at least 2 auto attackers to get value out of it. And the way you calculate it isn't like, oh, hey, they have rain or whatever. So the tank usually counts as 0.5, unless they're just a tank that doesn't really, you know, auto attack. And the healer counts as 0.5. So that basically means that if they just have one auto attacker on their team, like one genuine auto attacker, like the Thrall or the Rainer, which is going to be pretty much 99% of the time, you generally always take Suppression Pulse. Purifier Beam is just kind of a meme. It's not the best talent. Even with your slow talent that you take, it doesn't amplify it enough. Suppression Pulse is a global ability too. If you're looking at the map, you can save someone's life. It's done all the time, and that's what makes it so strong. Level 13, you're usually always taking Phase Bulwark. Reason you're taking this talent is it actually keeps you alive for so long. It recently got buffed, even though it was already the best talent, by making it 2 seconds longer after it expires. And what makes this talent so good is when you pair it up with the level 4 talent and the 16 that I'm going to get to soon, you basically can become unkillable if they have slow damage. So 16, the choice is always Force of Will, sorry. And the reason this is the best choice is this is what makes you just get 5 shields in a row, boom, like they can't do anything about it. I know everybody takes this talent. This talent is very troll. Don't take it. I know it was a 20 talent that got switched to 16, but this also was a 20 talent that got switched to 16, and it's way better. At 20, you have 2 choices. Honestly, if you feel like the DPS is really low, Plasma Burn is just not that bad anymore, especially with the build where you're getting all these shield talents. Your shield basically stays up for a while, and at level 20, it's like a good 135 damage burning rage, which is nothing to scoff at. Most characters have like a 50 or 60 burning rage. If you feel like you don't need the bonus damage, or you feel like they just have, a good amount of auto attackers, this talent's always good no matter what, even with the 2 charges. These 2 talents don't really have too much of a place in the game. Now, moving on to Arthas. So I play a lot of Arthas, so I'm quite experienced on this character. So level 1, generally 90% of the time you want to be taking Rhyme. Rhyme is just insane value on a tank that's always going to be getting auto attack no matter what. Having a 3 charge block every 5 seconds is just insane value. It's probably one of the best level ones, even though it's just a passive effect. You can take Eternal Hunger if they just have all mages in their team comp and there's no use, and you could also take Frost Presence for the exact same reason. So the reason you would take Eternal Hunger is one of the level 4s I'm going to recommend. Arthas struggles from mana problems. Even with the buff, you still go a lot. It's not like even if you're not spamming, you still go So it's not just like, oh yeah, I'm going to just take Frost Presence and always have full mana. But this also is a good choice anyways. So level 4, the best talent on the tier right now is actually Icy Talons. And the reason why is Arthas is sort of like a pseudo counter to ETC and Diablo and even Garrosh. But Garrosh not really as much. And the reason you counter them is Garrosh isn't supposed to throw Arthas in, or his team generally just always loses. ETC can never slide in if Arthas is on top of him. And what ends up happening in these matchups with Diablo and ETC is if you can just get your E on them, you just start auto attacking them endlessly with like 2.0 attack speed because you're just attacking so fast, and you honestly just kill them yourself. You don't even need help. That's how much it does. Frozen Waste is still good because you still go It recently got nerfed. Well, it kind of got like baselined on the mana talent. He got 2 mana off his E and 2 mana off on Frozen Waste. So it doesn't give you 4 mana cost reduction, but overall it basically just had the same effect before the patch. Level 7, even if you go Icy Talons, you generally go Icebound Fortitude if they have a decent amount of CC. If they don't have too much CC, or like their CC is like a Diablo, going Rune Tap's actually really good. So level 10, Army of the Dead. This talent is generally what you pick 90% of the time. You only pick Sindragosa when you're snowballing really hard, and when I mean that, I mean like level 10 to at worst 8.5. If they're almost level 9, even Sindragosa is still not good. So if you have like a 1.5 level lead, and it's an objective map, and you're getting like the objective, like let's say you're getting like a big shielded immortal, like full shield or 3/4 of a shield, and you're level 10 and they're level 9 or 8.5 or whatever, you can just pop the Cinder and go for a keep just then and there, just with the amount of value you're gonna get, because they're not gonna do the fort because you're 10, and then when you get to the keep, you just pop Cinder Gosa, and it's like your Sylvanas disabling everything. You'll usually get a keep like that, which is generally worth it for the trade of how powerful Army is. Level 13, generally the best talent is always Biting Cold. This talent usually just isn't picked, even with the vulnerability changes that buff vulnerability stacking, it's still not that good. There's some niche situations that you could take this talent if you're going full trade build, but generally it's not that good unless you're taking Eternal Hunger, Frost Strike, and Frostmourne feats. But you shouldn't be going the full D build even if you're D level 1, unless you're just taking no damage. If you feel like you're just always full life, like their damage dealers suck, then Frosting Strikes is a good choice with D at level 1. You don't take it otherwise. But Biting Cold is usually the best option. It gives you a big DPS boost. You really shouldn't underestimate the amount of damage this talent does because it's very strong. Level 16, generally your Morseless Winter is still the best talent on this tier. Embrace Death is kind of a gimmicky talent, and I told you like the niche situations, so you take Frostmourne feats. Just getting the root from the passive effect, you can stack your own root on your W on top of it, and this works on everybody, so you can get like a fat root on like 4 people by just standing near them if it's a dogpile team fight. Level 20, it's usually just always Legion of Northern, and if you go the other ult, Absolute Zero is pretty good. I don't think either of these two talents are ever in any way better than Legions of Northern. Your ghouls start healing you for 600-700, and you get 3 more, so the value speaks for itself. I don't even have to talk about that. So moving on, we have Auriel. So level 1, a lot of people are taking Searing Light. I don't think this is the best choice. I think that the other talents on the tier all have decent effects. Generally, I'd say if there's not any people that you're really that scared of, Righteous Assault is a decent talent. If you are very scared of the enemy team comp, Swift Speed is good. And then if you're in like a low elo, like let's say Bronze to Gold, increasing Clarity is not bad because people are just going to stand in your thing and just take the damage. Once you finish the quest, it actually gives you a good amount of damage anyways. Level 4, the best talent is usually always Repeated Offense. Even without the quest, having the increased knockback basically increases your percentage of getting the stuns, like the hard stuns, the ones that you shouldn't be hitting by a decent amount. And hitting 6 heroes with whips isn't that hard. And the bonus damage is just insane. 310 damage when stacked is very valuable. If you just don't feel confident, like with your whipping ability, Majestic Spin isn't the worst talent in the game, but generally Repeated Defense is a much better choice. At level 7, you have 2 options. If you feel like, actually all 3 options have some sort of viability. So if you're on Tomb of the Spider Queen or one of these maps where you rotate very frequently on and are only rotating, I'd say mainly just Tomb of the Spider Queen and maybe sometimes Infernal Shrines, but not even on those maps. Glimmer of Hope has decent value. Just because, like, basically just get a second heal and it's just really nice for the sustain. The only time you take Empathetic Link is in weird situations where you have someone who gets you insane energy and is a frontliner too. The only characters I can think of that applies to is characters that are very similar to Sonya. So Sonya does a ton of damage. In fact, she's one of the best battery targets in the game, despite not many people thinking that. So when you put this talent, take this talent and put the hat on her, you're getting energy from all the damage she's doing and from all the damage she's taking. So it's not a bad choice with Sonya. But if you feel like you don't have the best battery and you know you can get away with, playing in the front line a little bit because they have slow damage dealers or like a non-CC tank, Energized Cord is not a bad choice. It gives you really good energy, especially when you have a good battery on top of it. Uh, your energized cord is just going to keep you full energy always. So level 10, you almost never take Resurrect. I don't know why people take it ever. Crystal Aegis is just so insanely valuable. You generally end up getting a lot of energy from the Crystal Aegis too, because there's generally two people standing on it when it expires. Um, it just sets up your next heal. Like the way you use it is, you heal someone, and then if you're still dying, you quickly Aegis them, get some energy, and then you'll have enough time to get your next heal off. I know that the W is like 4 seconds, but if you heal them, wait a second, and then get your Aegis off, if they're like still like getting dogpiled or whatever, you'll have your second heal up again. At 13, generally blinding flash is always the best choice. Converging force just isn't really a talent, so I'm not going to talk about it. Piercing lash has some very niche situations. Like for instance, like if you have Tassadar Wall or some kind of character that like can keep people near walls and situations. I'm not giving really good examples. Maybe a Stitches who like makes people hug the walls a lot more, but generally only just Tassadar Wall. That's what I'd say is when you take Piercing Lash, because he sets up the wall. You get a good two people on that wall, and then you get reduced cooldown too. So that's really nice. Level 16, I'd actually say that if you have an auto attacker and you have a mage, I generally say that the attack speed is better depending on what kind of carry it is. So if it's like a Rainer or a Vala, I actually think Will of the Heavens better, even if you have a mage on your team. But if it's not like a super hyper carry, just a super hyper carry, um, Wrath of the Heavens always better than the attack speed. So yeah, Reservoir of Hope doesn't really have too much of a place in HOTS. If you're getting a lot of value in this talent, that means you're stomping the crap out of the enemy team, which means that you don't even need this talent in the first place, if you think about it. Level 20, you have two options. Diamond Resolve is honestly a very good talent when you have tons of burst. In fact, I'd even recommend using this talent, when you get this talent, using your Crystal Aegis like around 40 to 30% life if someone's getting instantly bursted, if they have that kind of team comp with CC and like insta burst with the Jaina with like winter mute for instance. Shield of Hope is also a really good talent. There's no place for these other two talents, but Shield of Hope is just basically a talent that it's just a lifesaver. I know it's only a 3-second shield, but um, it's kind of similar to like Lucio's Summer Anthem, but it's actually like giving them a shield too. So I'd say it's like a better version of that. Moving on, we have Azmodan. There's two builds. There's the Cancer Push build with Demonic Invasion, and there's Tide of Sin. And I'm going to explain the style you play Demonic Invasion a little bit, even though this is a talent guide thing, just because I know a lot of people play it wrong. So I'll go over the stacking build first. So level 1, you generally want to take Gluttony if you are going the Tides of Blood build. So you go Gluttony level 1. Level 4, with that build, I see Army of Hell a lot more often, even though I think Battleborn is decent as well. It's your choice between these two. I like Battleborn more, but you can go Army of Hell if it's your preference. Level 7, you take Master of Destruction, and this talent is so incredibly good. The reason why is you can actually use your E on the middle minion if it's not getting hit, and it'll literally hit all 7 minions, and then you can Q, and you just stack the whole wave. It's so nice. I don't know why people take any of these two. It's kind of troll. But yeah, a lot of people don't know that, and you get easy stacks. Level 10, you obviously go Tide of Sin, because you're going the stacking build. And 13, you can go, honestly, Cydia's Kiss with this build. The other two talents are actually for the pushing build, so Cydia's Kiss is generally the best talent. 16, Total Annihilation is generally the best talent. These two talents are, again, like talents for the pushing build, or there's sometimes a place for Sins of Grasp if you need the slow for whatever reason. But generally, Total Annihilation is extremely good and what gives you the burst on your Qs. Level 20, always Pride because you know you're going the stacking build. Now we're going to go over the other build. So this is the fun build. This is the Asmo build. I only go the Cancer push build. You don't try to stack with this build. You still go Master of Destruction at level 7, so you can stack. You'll generally have like 200 stacks uh, towards like the later stages of the game, but you're only getting those stacks because Master of Destruction makes it so easily when you put it on the globe minion. So here's the build. Level 1 you go Greed, and this just like helps your push significantly. You actually become a you can become a double soaker before you get your demonic invasion when you combine Greed with Master of Destruction. The reason why is Master of Destruction hits all 7 minions. Greed makes you do more damage to all of those minions, so it sets it up even nicer than you think. And when you do that, and you get the 200 Annihilation, um, it honestly buffs your summons quite a bit. Like, increased range on All Shall Burn, that's really nice. Demon Warriors is like getting attack speed is also incredibly nice. So honestly, the quest reward does a lot for the Cancer build, honestly. So level 4, you're always going Battleborn with the Cancer push build. I don't know why people go Army of Hell. It's trolling. Because, just do the math. This is a 10-second cooldown. Even with the mana cost, you're not really like, Q spamming because you're Cancer pushing. Even with the W cost, it's only 25. And you not only get your W, but you get your D faster too, which smites the minions, which is really nice. So you always go Battleborn with this build. Level 7, you go Master of Destruction. Level 10, obviously, the fun is in Demonic Evasion. You don't go Tide of Sin with this build. Level 13, you go Brutish Vanguard. And the reason you go this talent is at 16, you get a talent that buffs your Ws quite a bit. So it's not bad. And sometimes you need to team fight. Just like you just have to, even with the Cancer build. Like for instance, like if there's an objective and you don't have your ultimate, it's way better to be at the team fight and being useful. Asmo, honestly, even with Cancer push build, is like 0.8, 0.9 of an actual hero, so he's not like useless in team fights. Level 16, you take Hell Rift, and what makes this talent so good is with the Battleborn at level 4 and the Brutish Vanguard at level 13, you can just get 3 of these Demon Warriors and they're all smacking and doing 100% bonus damage for 5 seconds, which is incredibly strong. Level 20 is the nicest point of this build. You get Siege Breaker, and what you can end up doing a lot of the time when you get this talent is, and this requires good macro play, is you get your 4 teammates to stall the 5, and if you can get enough work done, you can basically just core with this talent when the keep's down, and you basically just core and end the game as your team suicides and stops them from recalling at whatever objective. Like for instance, let's say it's Infernal Shrines and it's a top shrine, and you already took the bot keep, for instance. You just run through bot, use all of your summons, and your teammates stop their backs, and you can just end the game yourself, 1v5. It's pretty fun. It also becomes easier when you have like a Falstad on your team who can go with you, and the 3 people on your team just stall and suicide for the end. So that's always fun to do. I might do it a game or two, honestly, on stream. Next we have Blaze. So Blaze is a character that honestly has a lot of damage and tank potential that people don't really think about too much. He's honestly not in a bad spot currently in the meta, but level 1, generally the 2 talents you want to be taking are Neuro Stimpack and New Habits. If you feel like you're going to be in danger when you go in, Unstoppable is really useful, so there's always a place for this talent. It's not just like useless, but you shouldn't be taking it in solo lanes or anything like that. Like Braxis solo lanes and Dragonshire, I feel like you're gonna need to pick one of the other talents, as in like Neuro Stim Pack or maybe even Adrenaline Stim Pack. And you'd only take Adrenaline Stim Pack if you are trying to double soak for whatever reason. And even then, I don't think it's better than Neuro Stim Pack. At level 4, generally Adhesive Petroleum is the best talent. This talent used to also increase the slow, so it's no longer overpowered. But generally, Adhesive Petroleum is just the best talent. Level 7, you have the option to go Incinerator Gauntlets or Krill and Krill. If your team just needs wave clear and you're just trying to double soak and, push lanes fast, Incinerator Gauntlets is really useful. If you need more team fight damage, Krill and Krill is very good as well. Level 10, I'd actually say Combustion is the better ult now. It's just Bunker has become so wonky with how like you can't exit and re-enter it too many times, and people are still trying to do that meme. And even when they have a lot of ults where you can dodge the R with it, it generally just like your teammates generally don't go in it when they should, or like something goes wrong with the timing. If you're in comms, Bunker is still good, but on the other hand, Combustion is actually a decent talent and should be taken, I'd say 60 to 70% of the time. Level 13, I'd say Fuel Leak is incredibly strong, and there's sometimes an opportunity to take Nano Machine Coding. For instance, if they have a Rainer on their team who's going into Wargate, this talent just makes him just not want to play the game anymore. So this talent has some uses when in niche situations against melee characters or against range characters that stay really close to your oil spills. You get like very good value, and this talent just generally doesn't really do too much, so it's not even really much of a choice. So it's between these two. Most of the time, 70% you're taking Fuel Leak, 30% in those niche situations where they have the Greymane or they have that character that you don't want to let them even attack at all. This is very potent. Level 16, you have multiple choices. So let's say they have a Tracer on their team and you just want to avoid the bomb damage. Juggernaut Plating is really good. Like basically spells that people are going to use on you and you just want to mitigate them. For instance, like a Pyroblast, but most of the time you won't be getting Pyroblasted. But overall, like Tracer Bomb, big burst characters like, KT, Gul'dan, stuff like that. If you just feel like you need the shield in team fights. Otherwise, these two are pretty decent. I would honestly say that thermal protection is good if you're not taking a lot of burst damage. If you feel like you're getting one shot way too much, heat treatment's also really good. But generally, all three of these talents have a place. At 20, if you took combustion, I'd honestly say that this isn't the worst upgrade in the game. It has a place. Um, like obviously you can't take fortified bunker if you didn't go bunker. And honestly, burn notice isn't really that good either. So it's honestly preference with this tier. You just take what you like. I kind of like burn notice better, especially when I'm incinerator gauntlets because of the area effect. But if you don't take this talent, honestly, taking flash fire is not bad at all. Now moving on to Brightwing. This is actually used to be one of my favorite healers. After Lucio got his rework, I kind of like it more now. Brightwing right now in the meta is not even very viable. She has a lot of potential to be very good, but she's just niche currently in the situation of the meta. So level 1, generally you want to be taking Hypershift a majority of the time. To get value out of Brightwing, you want to be constantly soaking minions and constantly using your Z on cooldown. Your Z honestly becomes a 20-second cooldown, which is insane, and is a 30% heal with this talent. But you can only use this kind of effect on certain situations. Like, pretend the map's Volskaya, and you know you're always going to be near minions, and you know it's always going to be brawling. you can get really good value out of it. Greater Polymorph is a really good talent when you're trying to stop hyper carries. If they have hyper carries on their team, you just shut them down quickly with the increased range. You don't have to go out of position to polymorph them. And the reset's honestly decent if you kill that hyper carry and you just use it on the next guy. So level 4, you always take Unstoppable Anomaly no matter what. It's honestly 2 talents and they're both pretty good. The increased slow is extremely good. It makes the poly honestly that much worse. Even using it on tanks sometimes that are out of position, it can get you kills that you wouldn't be able to get with the increased slow. And the max health damage is really nice. And I think it does AoE, right? So it's pretty good. Level 7, you're generally always taking Peekaboo, and the reason for that is you just get so much value out of this talent, especially with the level 1 Hyper Shift. And the other 2 talents on this tier are just not very good. Level 10, I'd say you want to take Blink Heal literally 95% of the time. And the reason Blink Heal is good is you should only be playing Brightwing to begin with in these niche situations where they don't have a lot of burst damage. Because Brightwing's healing actually becomes pretty dependable. And the best situation to get value out of Brightwing is constantly soaking and using your Z on a very short cooldown with the level 1 talent. And just being a sustain healer. Because Brightwing normally isn't a sustain healer. But if you can get value out of Blink Heal and Z, you'll always be in a good situation. Even if they have like a Lucio or Ana. Her biggest weakness is just like high amounts of burst damage and CC. Because what ends up happening is that if you pick Brightwing in those spots, you have to go Emerald Wind and peel for someone. And then you're an extremely shitty healer because you don't even have a healing ability, you just have your passive. So that's the problem with Emerald Wind. Even on boss maps, it doesn't matter. It's better to have like a sustain healer than to take this talent. Level 13 Pixie Power is just so incredibly strong. It's generally always the best pick. You generally take Safety Dust if they just don't have any spell damage at all, but that's like very rare. Level 16, you have 2 options on this. Actually, you have 3 options on this tier. So Phase Out, in my opinion, is generally the best talent because, while I did say that you shouldn't be picking Brightwing in bad spots, even when you pick her in good spots, to get value out of her, you constantly need to be, in the front and healing your team, soaking a little bit of damage, and then if they ever go on you, you just are out with Blink Heal. What this talent does, though, is it gets you out of such sticky situations. Let's say there's like an ability on you, Pyro or whatever, the tank just slid. You just use this to instantly dodge an ability and then R your team, and it's a 20-second cooldown. So you can just constantly combo this up with Blink Heal. It's very good. The other talent is Critterize, and this is sort of a win more talent. Like if you have a lot of like combo potential, it's also good because it's just you drop the polymorph on whoever you guys are trying to blow up and they'll die way quicker. Hush isn't a bad talent, it's just the other 2 are so incredibly good. If there's just like a character you really need to silence, I don't know, like let's say they have a Sonya and you have no whirlwind interrupts, and you can get the Q on top of her, this honestly isn't that bad. Or even like a Cho'Gall, for instance, that you just want to silence, but most of the time I'd say this just isn't, the value isn't there that much. It's very niche, and you'll know when to pick it, like in those niche situations that like, oh, Sonya with the whirlwind that you need to stop, or someone that just has to be silenced no matter what. If you like don't think, like if your thought process isn't, oh, this character has to be silenced no matter what, then it doesn't matter. Level 20, Invisible Friends is a very good upgrade, and Speedy Dragon is also pretty good. So generally you're taking one of these 2. Fairy Protector is not bad if you have some weird like AoE mage damage combination or something and you need to stop it all with your Pixie Dust at 13, Pixie Power at 13, comboed with the Fairy Protector. But I'd say this is like only picked 5% of the time. Generally, you always want to be going Invisible Friends and sometimes Speedy Dragon, but generally Speedy Dragon is not the best talent. I'd say Invisible Friends is better. Moving on, we have the Butcher. So, um, Butcher generally just has one build that's not just like trolling, and that's the Lamb build. If you're just trying to have a good time and you're not really focused on stacking, Furnace Blast is actually pretty decent, but it doesn't like it's kind of anti-synergy with your meat. Like you don't really have a purpose in collecting meat when you have Furnace Blast. You're just trying to one-shot someone. But I'll go over both of the builds. So I'll go over like the legitimate build first. So level 1 you want to be taking block. Level 4 you want to be taking unrelenting pursuit. Level 7 you want to be taking meat shield. Level 10 lamb the slaughter. 13 you have options, but honestly I'd honestly say Savage Charge is generally pretty good. It's not a bad talent. I like taking this one the most because 10% max health isn't really bad. Brutal Strike and Cleaver can be taken, but generally it's just Brutal Strike if you've already finished your meat stacks, and Savage Charge if you aren't that close to finishing your stacking yet. Level 16, generally the best talent is Enraged. It recently got buffed back to 25 armor, and if you fall below 50%, that means that you're getting focused and you can't stand still and auto attack anymore, unless you have your W on someone. So it ends up saving you if you try to run away, or if you know like you're in a one-on-one and you have your W and you're just healing infinitely off your auto attacks. This is just a really big buff. If they have like absolutely no interrupts for you and you already finished your quest, Blood Frenzy is actually not bad, but it's honestly not that valuable of a talent. Like Enraged, with its 25-second cooldown and giving way superior stats, is generally better. Level 20, obviously Slaughterhouse. There's no discussion about that. So now the kind of troll build that I like to go, that's kind of fun on Butcher. I'm not going to give too much explanation because it's a troll build. But level 1 you go block. Level 4 you go cheap shot because you're going for one shot. Level 7 you go meat shield because you're just trying to one shot and get out. So you combine the block with the spell armor and you're pretty tanky honestly. You're getting both styles of damage, which is really nice. Level 10 you go Furnace Blast. 13 obviously Savage Charge because you're going for one shots. 16 still Enraged. It just gives you the opportunity that if you get caught after your Furnace Blast, you can, get out. And then at 20, you go Bolt of the Storm, kind of for the same reason as the other 16. But you can also like reposition on top of a squishy or whatever with this talent. And generally, when you go, the level 4 Cheap Shot, level 10 Furnace Blast, and level 13 Savage Charge, you can one-shot some people if you have a little bit of follow-up. I'm pretty sure with just two auto attacks, if you can E and time your R properly, you can one-shot Morales if you do it correctly. Now, moving on to Cassia, I'm not really going to talk too much about the other builds. I'm only going to talk about the Charge Strikes builds because I don't think you should be picking Cassia ever. If you go the Q build, I know it's kind of strong, but you're just sacrificing too much. So generally with Cassia, you always go Charge Strikes level 1, Ring of Leech level 4, Surge of Light level 7, and always Ball of Lightning at level 10. It's just the value. It's honestly like 2 ultimates value, and it's only a 60-second cooldown. Like Valkyrie's nice and all, it might get you a pick, but this just wins you the fights very easily if you're using your ball correctly. Level 13 you go Grounding Bolt. I know this isn't a very good talent, but when you combo it with Martial Law, which does percent damage, you can get 6% max health damage between every Q, which is really nice. And at 20, you have 2 options. I like the Infinite Ball, but Titan's Revenge isn't a bad talent. If you feel as though you can stay in the team fight for a while and keep the ball bouncing, Infinite Lightning is really good. I've played games before where someone had two balls going on at the same time because they let it bounce so many times. Titan's Revenge is a good Garrosh counter. You just focus him and then none of his armor really matters. And the range just in general is nice, so you don't have to by any means take Infinite Lightning. These two talents are obviously preference, and you take them based on what you like each situation. Moving on to Chen, there's two builds for Chen. So the first one is the standard one that I'll go over. It's Elusive Brawler at level 1, which gives you basically your evasion. Level 4, it's Deadly Strike. Level 7, it's Bolder Flavor. I know a lot of people think Brewmaster's Balance is good, but Bolder Flavor is generally better when you go the Q Talons and you go the Elusive Brawler, because they stack up nicely together. What makes Bolder Flavor good is your uptime on how often you can Q is higher, and you actually do more damage potential like this. And Chen's damage is actually not that bad. At level 10, it's generally Pandas when you go this build. Level 13, Pressure Point. Level 16, Flying Leap. And at 20, you go Upgraded Pals. And with this build, you're basically kind of like a sustained damage builder, damage dealer bruiser, because you get this fat slow and the bonus damage, and you can just chase forever, and whenever you're in trouble you just go back to drinking, but you don't have to spend that much time drinking anymore because of Bolder Flavor. Now I'll go over the other build, and this is the build I see most Chen mains go these days, but sometimes they take a different level 7, but most of the time it's Freshest Ingredients at level 1. And the reason this talent's so good is that the shield lasts indefinitely, and you'll see why this is so good in a second. Level 4, they still go Deadly Strike, I think. Uh, Sometimes I see Ring of Fire, but most of the time it's Deadly Strike. Level 7, they take Purifying Brew. And generally with this build, you only go the secondary build when they have tons of CC. And what makes it so good is the 40 spell armor you get is permanent as long as you have the shield up with Freshest Ingredients. So you can basically have a permanent spell shield as long as you're drinking or you already drank and are in the middle of the fight. I see a lot of people go Brewmaster's Balance with this build too, but I feel like going Freshest Ingredients and getting the reward part, you have to go Purifying Brew. And this basically resets your drink when you get CC'd, so you can keep drinking and keep having that 40 spell armor. So it's a very good combination. Level 10 with this build, you can go Keg if you want to. Both builds are good, but I see Keg more often, and I think it's the better choice. Just because you're trying to be more of a nuisance with this build. You're not trying to be a sustained like bruiser as much. Level 13, you still go Pressure Point. 16, you go Flying Leap. And at 20, Untapped Potential is usually the best talent, but yeah, I just say this talent just doesn't do enough. It's probably one of the weakest level 20s in the game. This only works on abilities. Moving on, we have Gall. So I'll go over Cho first. So this is the build that Dragwana usually goes. It's the build that I think is the best. But generally you go Consuming Fire if you don't have, Auriel or Ana, like one of those big healers. Even I think Ana, you don't take this talent, just Auriel, who's gonna have infinite energy because you're Cho'Gall. You go Consuming Fire level 1. Level 4 you go Seared Flesh. Level 7 you go Firestarter. This is basically a build where you just keep resetting your Consuming Fire with the auto attacks, and the auto attacks get amplified. Level 10 Hammer of Twilight. Level 13 Molten Block. You can also go Surging Dash as well, but you don't have to. It's preference on these two. And then 16 you go Frenzied Fists, which basically makes you, this insane damage dealer on Cho. In fact, sometimes you might even do more damage than Gall with this build. And you just do a lot of damage. It's just the best Cho Gall in NA, the best Cho player at least. He usually goes this build. And at 20, I'd probably say the Will of Cho isn't bad. You can go Hour of Twilight, Will of Cho, Sethun's Gift, but I think Hour of Twilight's the best choice, in my opinion. So moving on to Jokal, both of these talents have a place, but I generally say that the Taskmaster is better. If you really need to be in like non-sticky situations, like where people are chasing you all the time and you just can't get away, the increased speed is kind of good. Um, Taskmaster, just having your Z on an extremely low cooldown is just very good. Um, this talent's not bad at much either, but it's not really necessary. So generally Taskmasters are usually better. Taskmaster, sorry. Level 4, you're generally taking bombs away, just because the quest reward and just the quest in general is pretty strong. Um, I don't think either of these two talents do too much. Level 7, I've been seeing tons of double trouble, even though it's been nerfed a lot, nerfed a lot. But I think Ogre Rampage is actually the best talent on this tier, because what you can do if you're Cho'Gall mains is you can basically have Gall switch it to Rampage and get this insane cooldown reduction, and then the Cho just switches it back to armor after 5 seconds, and then the Gall just does it again. Like if you have the right synergy, Ogre Rampage gets a ton of value. At level 10, I think Shadow Bolt Volley is the best choice. It's just Twisting Nether got nerfed too hard. It's still decent, but you only pick it in niche situations where you can just get on top of a lot of people and they don't have any mobility. 13, generally, Rising Dread is the best talent. I don't think this talent does enough. And Twilight Nova is also decent, but generally, Rising Dread is usually really good. But honestly, it's pretty close between these two, because it kind of guarantees the second hit. It just depends on preference. I see both of these a lot. At level 16, generally always Deafening Blast. The silence is really nice, and the stun isn't as long. Um, I'd say it's like about 70-30. You take Deafening Blast, and then like the 70, and then Lead Orb to 30%. At 20, I'd say either the Pierce or Psychotic Break are decent, but I think the Pierce is better always. But if Cho takes, like, for instance, Hour of Twilight, and you're having really close team fights and you take Psychotic Break, uh, it might not be a bad combination, but it really depends on preference. Next, we're moving to Chromie. Chromie is very strong right now. If you have proper mechanical skill, I actually think she's easily an S tier character. So I've been seeing a lot between both the builds. I haven't been playing too much Chromie myself, but I still think that the Q build's not bad. But you now have the option to go W build if you like it. At level 4, I think that Andoral Anomaly has a lot of value. I see this talent a lot, and I also see time troubles every now and then. But I think Andoral Anomaly is the best talent on the tier, because you can use your traps to tank like 2-3 tower shots. It just has so many different uses. This used to be an 18 talent. I know that the new trap works differently, but having a lot of traps down is like really nice, even with the new system. Level 5, I see a lot of proper greeting. I think this talent is the best option. If you just don't have anybody who can slow, root, or stun, then I'd honestly say these other two choices have a place, but generally it's usually always a proper greeting. At level 8, I think Slowing Sands is generally always better. but it's a choice of preference. I think Temporal Loop has a place, but I'd say it's like more 70-30 favored for the Stalling Sands. At level 11, you can honestly take time out now that Gnome Speed Ahead got nerfed a little bit. Here and there, if you're used to it as well, is good. So this is also a preference tier. 14 Fast Forward is extremely good. It's generally just the best talent. You're usually just always taking Fast Forward. Level 18, it's usually just always Piercing Sands. This talent just honestly makes you auto win the game. If you're fighting at a choke point, you just kill everybody. Fighting in tight spots, if you can get your team to fight in a tight spot, you'll honestly just wipe the whole team yourself, or at least chunk everybody to 1 HP. Blessing of the Bronze just isn't good anymore now that it's inactive and not a passive talent. Deckard Cain. So there's honestly only one build I think that's pretty decent right now, and it's Sapphire at level 1, Potion of Shielding at level 4. At level 7 you have 2 options, but generally Canai's Cube is the better talent. This is for stopping like the double healer or the Alex big time healing. Level 10 Stay a While and Listen is generally just always the pick. You only take Lornado where you just need to peel something no matter what. But I'd say it's more like 90-10 favorite for Stay a While and Listen. Level 13 you have 2 options. Actually all 3 options have some value. It's generally Ancient Blessings if you have a good amount of auto attackers. This talent is still insane. Super Healing Potion if the fights are super slow and you just feel like their damage is poke and they're not really ever all-inning. And you take Potion of Revival when it's just dogpile team fights. Level 16, honestly, in my opinion, the safest talent to go is Safety in Numbers. Getting an extra 50% cooldown reduction on your basic abilities is really nice. The biggest problem with Deckard Cain and why he's still not meta after his buffs is that when you have a Deckard Cain on your team, people just die way too much because the healing is just way too slow. If you're snowballing a game like crazy, Scroll of Stone Curse is very good. It's obviously a big talent, a big damage boost that makes it so that you can execute people with combos. It generally does like 600-700 towards level 16 to 20, which is really nice. And then the only time you take this talent is if there's something you need to stun, like Sonya Whirlwind or some kind of tank that like requires being CC'd, but generally it's not the best talent in the game. At 20, Bottomless Flask is honestly still a really good choice, and Respect the Elderly is also really good. If it's slow team fights and you have like a beefy team, having the unlimited healing with Bottomless Flask is really nice. But I'd honestly say Respect the Elderly is generally better. It's pretty close. I'd say it's like 60-40 in favor of Respect the Elderly because you're not going to have too many games where the healing potions are going to get value because someone will insta-die. Stuff like that. Only in slow fights does this get actual value. Moving on, we have Dehaka. Generally, the only build you're going to be wanting to go on Dehaka is Tissue Regeneration at level 1. Level 4, you're going to be going One Who Collects. Level 7, Feeding Frenzy, which is what gets your tongue on a very short cooldown. Level 10, you can take Adaptation at times if you feel as though you're in one of those games where your tank just isn't playing like a tank and you don't need the CC because you have some CC characters like Maev and whatnot. So Adaptation is not the worst talent in the world, and it keeps getting like these small buffs, so it's okay. Isolation is generally the best pick. Like 70% of the time, you'll be taking Isolation, and if you can hit an Isolation and tongue someone on top of it, it's generally usually a kill. 13, I'd say the best talent is Primal Rage. I know that they buff these other choices a little bit, but I still don't think they're that useful. I think that Primal Rage is just the best choice because you're going to be holding on to your essence until you have to use it. And a 60% attack damage boost is very strong. Moving on to the 16th tier, you have two choices. Generally, elongated tongue is always the pick, but in some weird situations where you need to run away when you're in the middle of the team fight because they have so much chase and CC potential, Tunneling Claws isn't a bad choice. But I'd say you only pick this when you have to, not because you want to. Now, moving down the list, Contagion is just very, very strong. It's generally always the pick if you have isolation in the first place. If you go the other role, I don't think this upgrade is that useful. You can go either of these two. I think with the adaptation, Essence Claw isn't the worst choice because you're constantly getting essence from your auto attacks. The combination of these two make you extremely beefy on top of the level 1 tissue regeneration. Next we have Diablo. There's a lot of variations in the Diablo build. I'm only going to go over the one I go because I think it's the best one. So level 1 you go Devil's Due if it's a map with like, Infernal Shrines, Tomb of the Spider Queen where you can get globes. If it's a big map where you're going to be constantly fighting at objectives like, Altaric Pass or Sky Temple, Feast on Fear is better. Level 4 you go Souls to the Flame. Level 7 you go Malevolence, which gives you a big damage boost. Level 10 most of the time Lightning Breath because it's more consistent. APOC if you feel like you have to one-shot someone to win the game, but that's generally not the case. Level 13 you go Devastating Charge, and level 16 you go Domination. And you just look for the double wallbang one-shot plays with Malevolence and Lightning Breath. At level 20, this is honestly a tier that I actually have been on the edge of for a while. I think that Lord of Terror is actually the best choice on this tier. The reason why is Hellgate's cooldown is so incredibly long. Even when you can get that combo or whatever, if they have a cleanse, you're getting out of it anyways. Generally what ends up happening at 20 fights though, is it's usually always a dog pile, and I've had team fights where I've gotten 50% max health at 100 souls, and I basically made 5 heroes lose 10% of their max health. And if you do that, you're usually winning the team fight. Even if you proc it on 3 or 4 people, that's still insane. Next we have D.Va. D.Va's a character that has gotten a lot of changes in the last few, not a lot of changes, but a lot of like weird small changes that didn't really do too much to her. Her auto attack damage got buffed a few times. A couple of her talents that weren't that useful got buffed. But I'm going to go over the build that I see the best D.Va player in an A goes, and I think it's really good. So he goes either rush down or hit the nitrous, usually rush down though, because it's basically makes your Q like a mount. Level 4 he goes either bring it on for the most part, or he goes diverting power. This talent's actually pretty good because it honestly makes it so that in certain like games you can actually just zone out tons of damage, like tons of melee damage if they have like a lot of melee characters and not too much CC. At level 7, he actually always goes nuclear option, and what he does is he looks for the wombo combo. So Maiev Cage, ETC, Mosh Pit, whatever you can get, just any kind of wombo combo. Playing with a Maiev makes it a lot easier to get this insane value, and he just gets one shots with this talent. At level 10, he always goes big shot because Bunny Hop isn't really an ultimate; it does nothing. Level 13, you have options. Generally, it's usually emergency shielding and ablative armor. When I play D.Va, I like this talent, but I see more often than not people are taking emergency shielding and ablative armor. But you can take expensive plating if you think it's going to be more useful, but these are usually the general picks. At 16, you always take Torpedo Dash no matter what. It will save your life many times. If you don't take this talent, you're actually trolling. And level 20, it's usually pew pew pew, because you can get 5 6 mechs in a 2020 team fight if you can you know get this talent's value and hit like a couple heroes 3 times. You basically just have your mech again. Going on, we have ETC. There's honestly only one build for ETC, and it's always going to be the same. Go Prog Rock at level 1 because it's so valuable. In very, very, very niche cases, you can take these two, and you'll know when. If they're all auto attackers, and it's a big, big map where you can't get globes, then these two talents might have some value. Level 4, always loudspeakers. Level 7, Pinball Wizard. And this talent gives you a lot of options. You can actually slide on a minion wave and then W it and almost insta clear the wave. Obviously, it's bad to do that because now you don't have anything, but if you know you're in a situation where you just have to sit and clear the minion wave and then rotate, it's actually extremely efficient. This talent also makes your W do like 400 or 500 damage, so when you're sliding characters, it gives you an extremely good damage boost. At level 10, you generally take Stage Dive if you're winning, and you take Mosh Pit if the game's close, or they don't have any Mosh interrupts, or just like 1 or 2 at best. But Stage Dive is usually the snowball talent. You basically become a mini global, and you can basically reset in the middle of a team fight that you've already won, and then stage dive in to like expand your lead even farther if you're out of mana, for instance. Or on maps like Alterac Pass, where you want to push with part of the objective, and because you're the tank, you have to be with your team on that map usually. But because of stage dive, it's fine. Generally, this talent is usually better. I'd say 70% of the time, it's a better talent than Mosh Pit. Level 13, this is the talent that makes ETC how good he is. When you take this talent, what you do is you basically stand in between the enemy tanks and the DPS. So you're basically behind the enemy tanks, and you're in front of the DPS. And what you do is you just constantly keep Wing the tanks into your team, and then you push the DPS away. And it makes it so easy for your team to kill the tanks, and doesn't really give you a problem peeling yourself out of range for the DPS. At 16, you take the talent either aggressive shredding most of the time if you finish your quest. You take imposing presence if they have a lot of auto attackers. And then you take showstopper if you're getting focused a lot and they have tons of burst. So if you feel like you're playing against that Jaina who's just always putting his welly on you and they're just trying to blow you up always, showstopper is not a bad talent. I know a lot of people hate this talent because they think, oh, it anti-synergy with the passive. It gives you 25 armor, but if you look, it's 25 armor for 2 seconds. You're only getting 10 more armor, but you're increasing the duration. Sometimes you want to slide and not use any other spells, so the 4-second duration is kind of nice. At level 20, death metal is usually the agreed upon choice. There's some situations where when you're snowballing really hard with stage dive, you can go crowd pleaser. Because if you can get like a 3 or 4 man crowd pleaser, the damage it does is so abundant, and the slow is also really good. And it also has a reset mechanic on it as well, which is kind of nice. You go Bolt of the Storm when you take Mosh Pit and you're looking for really big plays when you have a big lead. Like let's say you're trying to close out the game and it's 20 to 18. Bolt of the Storm is generally better than Death Metal because you have a big lead already and you don't need to die. If it's like an even game or you don't trust your teammates and you feel like they're gonna like catch up, or they're just constantly like trading kills, you can take Death Metal. It's usually the best choice. Next we have Falstad. Falstad has 2 builds. I'm gonna go over both of them. I'll go over the one I like first more. So generally this is the scaling build on Falstad. You go Seasoned Marksman level 1, level 4 you go Hammer Gains, level 7 Boomerang, level 10 Mighty Gust, level 13 Giant Killer, and level 16 Airy Gust, and 20 you go Nexus Frenzy. So that's the scaling build. Now it's the build that most people go. They go Wingman level 1, Static Shield level 4, Charged Up level 7. And this is a full W build. And I only recommend this build if you feel like you're getting a lot of value from your mercs. If you're taking it for the W damage, it's not better than the Seasoned Marksman build. This build is only good if you're getting value out of your mercs. Level 10, it's still Mighty Gust, 13 Thunder Strikes, and 16, you can go Afterburner if you want. You don't have to go Airy Gust. It's preference with this build. Generally, with the Seasoned Marksman auto attack build, you really want to have your passive up more, so you can auto attack and reposition quickly. But with the W build, it's more about getting your W's up and killing someone and getting out. That's why Afterburner is not bad. At level 20 with this build, it's usually always Wind Tunnel. If you can push a bunch of people into a wall, they can't move forever because they're just constantly getting pushed into the wall. So it's a very strong talent. I think there's a place for these two talents. Well, not this one, but there's a place for this talent, but it's just not that useful. Next we have Fenix. So I'm just going to go over the one build that I think is the strongest for Fenix. Arsenal Synergy at level 1, just because it gives you the most damage. Level 4 target acquired. Level 7 combat advantage. Level 10 purification salvo. And then 13, you're still taking auxiliary shields. The only time you take rapid recharge is if you have a Lucio on your team. Otherwise, auxiliary charge. Auxiliary shields is better. And the only reason this is good with Lucio is you get the shield based off the amount of healing you receive, but like you're not going to be getting healing that often. But if you're getting the shield amount while like passively, like how Lucio works, it's more effective. Level 16, usually photonic weaponry is always the best choice because you're always going to have a shield when you take this one, or you have a Lucio standing next to you and you have rapid recharge. At 20, if you're snowballing really hard, secondary fire is very good. If you're not snowballing that hard, Unconquered Spirit is always the choice. Moving down the list, we have Garrosh. Level 1, you always take Warbreaker. Level 4, you go Indomitable. Level 7, Into the Fray. Level 10, Warlord's Challenge. You generally almost never take Decimate. At 13, when you go to this build with the level 1 Warbreaker, defensive measures is always better than Blood Craze, because you're not always going to be able to W heroes. You're always going to be able to kill them though. At 16, Earthbreaker is usually the best talent. You always get like, an interrupt on your abilities. These two talents just don't do that much. I'm pretty sure Rough Landing got nerfed as well. Having an interrupt on your throw is kind of nice, and you can basically throw someone on top of someone else and then Q right after if you're positioned properly, and then taunt right after. Level 20, generally it's always just double throw. I think if you're in a competitive game and you have some weird, no, not even, honestly, I just think Titanic Might's just always better. There's no reason to take this talent. I know it puts your taunt on a 5-second cooldown, but after you get one kill, it doesn't even matter. Even if you have a one-shot team comp, it's just not that useful. Next we have Gazlowe. I'm only going to go over the Robo Goblin build because I think it's the better build. But generally, you take one of these two. If you need wave clear, extra TNT is kind of good. If you need the mana and you don't really care about wave clear like you're in a Soul Link, Scrap-O-Matic's pretty good. At level 4, you go Clockwork Steam Fist. Level 7, you have the choice. I think Rocket Turret is better if you can keep your turrets alive and it's like 5v5 team fights. Otherwise, Engine Gunk isn't bad. At level 10, you take Robo Goblin because we're just only discussing about this build. 13 extra large bombs is pretty good when they have a lot of CC tanks. This talent isn't really good unless you're going the full laser build, which I'm not going to go over. 16 turret storage and 20 Mechalord. With this build, you're just trying to finish your quest, Clockwork Steam Fist. And it's more of like a solo laning build and getting, objectives like the camps and bosses, having objective control. Gazlowe's auto attack damage is pretty high with his level 10 and his 20. So he scales kind of well. And if you play him like correctly in team fights, you're honestly still like a legitimate hero. Next we have Genji. I've played Genji about a good 2,000 times. This is the build I always go. I always go Swift as Wind at level 1, Strike at the Heart at level 4. Um, you have a preference between these three talents. It's 1, 2, and 3. If you're playing Genji properly, you're not going to be getting that much spell shield value. So it's just not a good choice. You take perfect defense when there's not really any W interrupts, like not too much CC, and you won't get interrupted, and you know you'll get value out of it. You take augmented guard versus characters like Alarak with like high amounts of burst damage, or Chromie. You get a fat deflect up. Basically, sometimes you'll be able to get like these 2k deflects, 2k shield deflects, and then it gives you a 1k shield for 4 seconds, which is insane value. But you have to be really good at Genji to get value on this talent. Otherwise, you take dodge. This talent's always decent. You take it when you don't feel like you're going to get too much value out of these two because you're going to get CC. Level 10, I always go Dragon Blade 95% of the time. You only go X-Strike when they have Cocoon, and on top of it, you don't have good teammates that are doing any damage. And even then, X-Strike just isn't that valuable. If you get good enough with Genji, it's not hard getting Dragon Blade value, even against a ton of CC. You just have to use your D properly in the middle of the Dragon Blade and get a lot of swipes in. At 13, flow like water because getting your own version of E resets without kills is really good. And 16, final cut. And at level 20, obviously Dragon becomes me. And this build is basically a scaling build. At level 20, you have the potential to just kill everybody with your Dragon Blade getting resets. So Genji's kind of a scaling pick, and if you're playing Genji, you have to figure out how to use the Dragon Blade properly, or it's just not a good pick anymore. He's basically just a Dragon Blade bot at this point, and then a ranged assassin killer. Other than that, he doesn't have too much of a place in the meta. But because like ranged assassins are in the meta so often now, that's why he's still in the S tier. Next we have Greymane, and I'm going to go over only the one build that I think most people should be going. Level 1 Viciousness, level 4 Insatiable, so you have the unlimited mana and you can double soak. Level 7 Wise and Duelist. Level 10 Cursed Bullet because you're honestly a tank killer when you go this build. Level 13 you go Unfettered Assault, which gives you infinite mobility. Level 16 you go Alpha Killer, which gives you the ability to kill a tank in 5 seconds. 5 auto attacks if you hit your bullet on them. Any tank, 5 auto attacks, they die with this combination, these 3. And then at 20, there isn't really that many good options, so it's generally just Human Blunderbuss, and you'll get value out of this talent if, like, usually at the beginning of fights when you just can't go into Worgen, you can just stay in range, auto attack a few times, and the second someone gets CC'd, then you can bullet and go into Worgen if you need to. Next we have Gul'dan. I honestly think all 3 of the level 1s have a place. On Braxis, Pursuit of Fire is very good. On Tomb of the Spider Queen, this is decent. And honestly, his W build is not that bad. If you just don't have a sustain healer, W build is actually generally really good. Because you combine the level 1 with the level 4 and you have unlimited healing no matter what. But I'll only go over the general build. I think that the best build in the game right now is Pursuit of Flame at level 1. Level 4 you take Improved Life Tab. Level 7 you go Hunger for Power. Level 10 Horrify. And then level 13 you go Fell Flame, Grant Spell Armor, or Hellstone, one of the 2. With the Dream build you go Harvest Life. But with the Q build, it's always one of these 2. If they have a lot of auto attack, your Hellstone's better. And at 16, you get Rampant Hellfire, which basically makes your Q damage, it's not even poke anymore, you're just basically blowing people up. If you take a sustained team fight, you just become one of the strongest sustained damage dealers. And if you're going like the E build, because you know you can get the late game, Ruinous Affliction does really well with level 1. At level 20, you usually take Haunted. There's a place for Demonic Circle if you think that you're gonna get one shot a lot in team fights. Haunt isn't honestly that good of a talent. A lot of people overestimate it, but generally, if you're in a team fight and you know you can get one shot after you've done your work and gotten a kill, it's basically like an instant save. The only problem is that like you're no longer in the team fight, so you need to use it in like a very niche situation. Next we have Hanzo. I think that the Q and W build are very strong at the moment, but they both require a lot of player skill. I still think that the W build is the best build even after the nerfs, so I'm just going to go over that build because everybody knows what the Q build is already. So you go simple geometry at level 1, at level 4 you go explosive arrows, at level 7 never outmatched, level 10 99% of the time arrow, and I'm not even going to talk about this. With this build, Ninja Assassin's the best talent. With Q build, Fleet of Foot is better. But when you get the Pierce at 16, it's really easy to get that first kill when you jump over a wall, and then once you get the kill, you can just jump out and you're fine. A level 16 piercing arrows is what makes Hanzo such an incredible threat, because now you can shoot your W at someone and it won't just hit their body, and then pierce it off the wall. That's like one of the mistakes people make that I see a lot, is that when they get this talent, they don't actually shoot their W's through people and then hit the wall. Like pretend someone's hugging a wall. You can shoot it at their exact character frame. It'll go through them and then scatter for the full amount of arrows, which is I think 5, which is really nice, 5 or 6 or whatever it is. And then at 20, you have a lot of options. Honestly, Bullseye is really good if you need to interrupt something or you're trying to win a 1v1 that requires it just with the stun. If you feel like you need a global because like you need to clear minions all the time, because like they have like katas and they're constantly pushed. Play the game's not bad. And perfect agility is also really good, especially with the 13. So all these talents have a place in the game. Next we have Illidan. The most safest and best build on Illidan is the Unending Hatred build. I'm going to go over that one. Everybody knows that Battered can get insane value, but it requires the team comp to be right. Unending Hatred is the general pick. I'm going to go over that build because it's generally the build you want to go most games. So you go Unending Hatred at level 1, Friend or Foe at level 4, and then level 7 you have options. Reflexive Block if you have a lot of auto attackers, and then Thirsting Blade if you're stacking really well. This talent's not really useful. At 10 you're generally always going to be taking the Hunt when you go Unending Hatred because you need to focus on your stacking more than anything. At level 13 if they have a lot of auto attackers, Elusive Strike can get insane value. If you're playing against like that Li Ming, KT, one of those kind of characters, Sixth Sense is really good. And if either of these two talents just aren't going to get you too much value, Nimble Defender is also pretty decent. It makes you just more tanky in general, just a permanent 25 armor. Level 16 Mark for Death is always the pick, unless you're going, the Battered Assault build with Blades of Azeroth. But generally, Mark for Death is the best choice. At 20, if you're snowballing incredibly hard, Nexus Blades is a good choice if you're not, getting focused hard and dying too much. But if you feel as though you're not snowballing and you're, dying a decent amount, Bolt of the Storm is also really good. But generally, I think Nexus Blades is the best choice on that tier. Moving down the list, we have Imperius. Level 1, you always go burn the Impure because you're soul laning and most soul laners have a lot of beef. Level 4, you go Battle Hunger, which gives you that sustain that you need to stay in the lane forever. Level 7, honestly, there's 2 talents that have decent value. I still think Holy Fervor is the best talent by far, but if you're really good with getting the explosive damage, this talent kind of helps you with the one-on-one. But generally, I'd say 90% of the time, 90% of the time, this is the best talent, even after the nerf. Level 10 angelic ornaments is usually always better. If you're snowballing a game really hard, or you just have no way of engaging on the opponent because of how your team comp works, rather the Angerus isn't that bad, but generally angelic ornaments is the best choice. His shield is just too big. Level 14, usually Divine Rage is the best talent, and then level 16, you have two options. I generally like Melting Touch more, but you can take Sovereign Armor as well if you feel as though you're really squishy. I think this is the better talent though. At level 20, you always take Valor's Pursuit. You only take Heavenly Host when you just have that one, when you have those feeders on your team. But Valor's Pursuit is just insanely strong talent. In fact, that if you can get good with Imperius, there's some combos you can do with this talent that people just don't expect because they don't know how this talent works with how the blink works. It's only a 12-second cooldown too. Next we have Jaina, and there's only one really legitimate build to Jaina. Ring of Frost generally just isn't a good talent unless you're going for wombo combos. But I'm just gonna go over the standard build. It's Fingers of Frost level 1, level 4 Frost Shards, level 7 Ice Lance, level 10 Summon Water Elemental. This talent is so incredibly overpowered. The fact that it isn't just picked like every single game that you're not comboing is kind of a joke. Generally, Water Elemental, if it's not killed, it just does so much because like the constant slow just gets you so much value, and it sets up your Frost on people to get your full combo off. Level 13, you always take Icy Veins. 16, Numbing Blast is the best choice now that Northern Exposure got nerfed. But if you have a blow up comp with like a lot of CC with like ATC Tehran stuff like that, Northern Exposure is still good. But Numbing Blast is definitely the best choice. 20 Wintermute is just insanely overpowered, so you're always sticking that. Next we have Johanna, and I'm going to go over two builds just because she has two builds that are decent. Level 1, you usually want to take Laws of Hope. You take Hold Your Ground when you're playing against Garrosh because it gives you more opportunities to get thrown in and survive. Or just tank damage in general against Garrosh and these like tanks that like can see or focusing on CCing you. Generally, I'd say Laws of Hope is the best choice though, and you take this only versus Garrosh a lot. Level 4, all three of these are decent. If your team has absolutely no wave clear, you go Eternal Retaliation with Blessed Momentum. If your team has good wave clear and you're snowballing really hard, Sins Exposed is really good, so you can take that. If none of the above, you take Conviction, which when I say none of the above, I mean like your team's not very good, but you have wave clear. You go Conviction at level 4, and at level 7 you go Subdue. And the reason why you do that is because when you combo these two talents together, you can be a really good engaged tank. Level 10 you take Blessed Shield. Level 13 you take Roar if you're going the Subdue build. Just in general, Roar is really strong. Even without the build, I think Roar is the best choice. If you need even more wave clear, Holy Fire is not bad. At level 13, Blessed Hammer is not bad. On the 16th tier though, Imposing Presence is usually the best talent. It's just like you're always going to be getting auto attacked on Johanna. This talent gets you really good value. If you don't have that many auto attackers, you take Holy Renewal. Fanaticism is honestly okay if at level 1 you went Holy Ground, Hold Your Ground, and then at level 4 you didn't go Conviction because this does not stack with this. So you have to keep that in mind. And at level 20 you're generally usually taking Indestructible. If you feel as though they are never hitting you and they're focusing your team, Blessed by the Light is actually an extremely good talent. So if you feel like you're not going to need this effect, because I see a lot of Jonas who just don't take any damage for some reason because they're just not getting hit, Blinded by the Light is actually like a very good talent. Next we have Junkrat. There's honestly only one build that really works, so I'm going to go through this quickly. Let's put some English on it. Level 4 you take Taste for Explosions. Level 7 you go Tricky Shuffles. Level 10 Riptire. Level 13 you go Ripper Air. 16 Endless Nodes. This is when you start getting your really good scaling. If you can hit your grenades, you just get endless grenades. And at level 20 it's usually Cannonball, but if you feel like you need multiple ultimates, like if you feel like you can get big Riptires, like you're hitting 3 or 4 every time you team fight, if you hit 4 people with a Riptire, it fully resets. If you hit 3, it's only on a 20-second cooldown. But I usually say Cannonball is usually the better choice. Next we have Kael'thas. The build that I think that is the only meta build is Mana Addict at level 1. Level 4 you take Nether Wind. At level 7 you have a couple of options. I'd say Sun King's Fury is usually the best choice, but you can go Sunfire Enchantment as well. It's not a bad talent, and it makes your Pyroblast really strong. At level 10, if they have like a Hanzo or something, Pyroblast is really good. If you have like a full objective team and it's like a map like Shrines, Fenix is also really good. You basically just only take them when they're good. You take Pyroblast when they have squishies that you just want to knock out of the fight or execute, and you take Fenix when you need objective control. At 13, I'd say the best talent is usually Pyromaniac, but you can take either of these two as well. If you're going for maximum DPS, you go Pyromaniac. If you feel as though you need slows, Backdraft isn't bad. If you feel as though they're spreading your bombs like crazy, Fission Bomb is also extremely good. Level 16 usually just Ignite because it's just a big power spike. You hit like a couple people with a Q, and you get an Ignite on one of them, and then they have to walk away from each other because they're stacking. You can keep your distance too. I'd honestly say Twin Sphere isn't that bad with Sunfire Enchantment if you go Pyromaniac. You can do some weird things with that combination, but you have to kind of get used to how the spells work together. At 20, I think I think all of these are good. Flamethrower, Master of Flames, and Rebirth. All 3 of these are pretty good. Rebirth is good if you took Fenix in the first place and want more objective control. Master of Flames if you feel like people are spreading the bombs like crazy, and then Flamethrower if all of the above. You went Pyroblast and they're not spreading the bombs that much, you go Flamethrower. Because this talent honestly makes it so you can play really safe, and it goes well with the Ignite, because you can throw some Qs from a mile away and get some pretty good damage in. Next we have KTZ. So KTZ, I'm going to go with the more general build. Generally you go Blighted Frost, Barb Chains if you're KTZ God, but usually Blighted Frost, level 1. Level 4, Phylactery of Kel'Thuzad because the revive is really nice. Arbor of the Archlich is decent, but I'd say this is usually better if you know how to position yourself. At level 7, Chilling Touch because it helps you a lot with your combo. Level 10, just always Shadow Fisher. If you're taking this just means you don't know how to play KTZ, I'm sorry. 13, you usually go, where is it? Chains of Ice. And this just makes it so that it's easier for your R to land after you hit a combo. The other 2 choices are just not that good. At 16, you usually are taking Hungering Cold, because you can generally get like a ton of spells off when you get your full combo, which is pretty nice. I think this talent's okay, but I just think Hungering Cold's better. And at 20, you can either go the Damned Return and get your mimics on, like your triple Q, or even Might of the Scourge isn't bad. I see this one a lot more often. I think it's better. I think Shifting Malice isn't that good. I feel like you're not positioning properly if you're taking that talent. At levels on Kerrigan now. Give me 1 minute, sorry. Alright, sorry about that. Next, Kerrigan. So generally the best build is going to be Fury of the Swarm at level 1. At level 4, you take Kinetic Fulmination, which basically the way you're supposed to be playing Kerrigan is you're not just like using your combo on cooldown. You have to read their body language and be ready to get the combo when you see it. Like you don't just throw it out instantly, or you can wait for your tank to CC first and then throw it for a guaranteed 100% landing on your combo. At level 7, you usually take Boundless Fury because this gives you a lot of mobility. Like if you hit your combo and you want to go to the back line, you can Q on top of them and then Q back to the tanks. So you get a lot of mobility from this talent. At level 10, Summon Ultralisk is usually the best choice. Even stuns now. It just has a lot of like value, I guess, in general. You only take Maelstrom when you know you can stay on top of people for a while. If you can't, Summon Ultralisk is usually better. And most of the Kerrigan mains in high ranks all take this talent, so it's not just my opinion. At level 13, Chrysalis is kind of decent, but you're usually taking Volatile Power. If you feel as though you need the Chrysalis, which happens a lot of games because Kerrigan is a character that gets focused the most, Chrysalis is always the pick when you need to dodge a pyro, you need to buy 3 or 4 seconds of time to live. I actually think this talent is actually really good. I think that in games where you're snowballing, though, Volatile Power is always better. Level 16, you usually go Painful Spikes. This just gives you an insane damage boost after you hit a combo. And it's what makes Kerrigan so strong. Level 20, you usually go Assimilation Blades. But I've seen Psionic Shift and I've seen Omega Storm. I don't think this talent's very good. I think Assimilation Blades is the best option at 20. Now moving on to Kharazim, I'm going to go over both the builds. So I'm going to go over the first build, and this is the Tracer counter pick build. So you pick Kharazim into Tracer, you go this build, and you basically counter her. And the reason for that is you can palm her bomb and just save people. It's very strong. So level 1, you go Iron Fist. The reason you go Iron Fist is because you win the one-on-one versus Tracer, and it's not even close. If she doesn't play properly, you can actually solo kill her really easily. Level 4, you go Earth Ally, just because this talent's insanely valuable. Level 7, you go Blinding Speed. And level 7, you go Palm. And the reason you take Blinding Speed at 7, I didn't talk about it yet, is you basically become really sticky, and if you're getting close to really like one-shotting that Tracer, or even in general, not even against the Tracer, you always take this talent because the other two aren't that good. But it just makes you more sticky when you're trying to kill someone or get out. You just have more blinks. Level 13, all 4 of these talents are good. So if they have a lot of CC, this talent is very good. If they have a lot of like instant burst damage from mages, like a KT Pyroblast, you can toggle this on. It's really good. Fist of Fury, if you're never under any threat and you just think you'll be able to constantly auto attack, and Quicksilver if you're trying to save people from dying. So they all have a use. You shouldn't really be taking one of these talents every single game. You should be using them based off what's going on in the game. At 16, Cleansing Touch is usually always the choice just because of how much sheer power it gets. If they don't have any CC for whatever reason, and they don't have a lot of damage, you can take Echo of Heaven, which gives you basically 50% more healing overall, but it's over time. Way of the 100 Fist, if like, again, like the same reason as Fist of Fury, if you for some reason you can just hit them forever because they're not fighting back. And Dash of Light, if you don't want to slow or heal, but you feel like you need to save someone from getting bursted down. The only time you really take Dash of Light is when there's nothing to cleanse and they have a lot of burst damage, which sometimes happens. It happens more often than people think. At level 20, all these choices are good, so I'm not really going to talk about it too much. If you're not that good with your palm, this is the best choice. If you're palm god, you take one of these two. I like Storm Shield kind of better, but Epiphany is also good. So yeah, and I'm gonna go over the second build now. So this is the full damage monk build. It's not really a counter pick, but it's generally the most generalized pick, generalized build path that you go. So you go Iron Fist at level 1, level 4 you go Earth Ally, level 7 you still go Blinding Speed, so useful, level 10 7-sided, 13 again same reasoning as before, 16 same reasoning as before, but mostly just this if you have CC, and at 20 honestly Transgression's not that bad, but you just have to know whether or not you'll be able to get the bonus strikes, because sometimes they'll just walk out and you're hitting nothing. Otherwise these two talents aren't that bad either. Moving on, we have Leoric. I'm going to go over the main build. So usually it is Consume Vitality if the team fights are just normal. If they have a lot of bursts, you go Oswine Renewal. And you go Fealty onto Death if you plan on double soaking on like Tomb of the Spider Queen, for instance, and you know you can get away with double soaking. Like the person's not going to just force you to stay in lane. Like let's say it's like a low ranking game. Level 4 Neo Peasants is honestly the best talent. You should usually always take it, but both of these talents are decent as well. At level 7, I usually say Hopeless is the best talent. Willing Vessel's okay if like you're just playing against a tank that like is just not moving or not respecting your drain at all. Then Willing Vessel's okay. At level 10, Entomb is the best talent because at level 20 you get the Silenced Entomb, which is overpowered. Level 13, you have options. I generally say the best build is to go Ominous Wrath and Royal Focus. But if you're going for a more damage-oriented Leoric build, you go Spectral Leech and Mithril Mace. So Leoric still has that ability to constantly E on top of the enemy team at level 16 and just half every single person's damage in the team fight. So it's still extremely strong. But the Spectral Leech Mithril Mace build, if you really need DPS, if you're against the Cho'Gall and you're picking Leoric as a counter pick, you always take Crushing Hope though. Level 20, it's Burning Alive always, no matter what. If you can get like a good amount of people in your tomb, like 2 or 3, just win the game because it's level 20. Those 3 people die, and you just end. Next we have Lily. I'm gonna go over the build that makes her actually a good healer. So level 1 you go Wind Serpent. Level 4 you go Serpent Sidekick. Level 7 you go Cleanse. If you don't need Cleanse, you go Lightning Serpent, but usually you'll need Cleanse. Level 10 it's Jugs of 1000 Cups. Water Dragon is a troll ultimate. Even when you go double support, if your second support isn't like a super sustain healer, you should still go Jugs. Uh, I don't think Water Dragon is just good in general. You only go it if you're snowballing super hard, and even then it's still kind of a troll ultimate. Level 13 Gale Force because it synergizes with Wind Serpent at level 1. It just basically gives you even more auto attack damage off your W and your E, and it also increases the duration. So there's a lot of synergy between the 1 and 13. Level 16, you take Pick Me Up always. You don't take this talent because your healing becomes way too slow. Pick Me Up just gives you the the burst sustain that you need to stay alive, and then the constant Q spam for the sustain healing. Level 20, honestly, I think that Mistweaver isn't a bad choice anymore. It got buffed a few times. If you're going for overall healing output, Mistweaver is the best choice. If you're going for burst, sustained teamfight healing, like they're just blowing people up, this is definitely the better choice. But if you feel like the team fights are just long, drawn out fights, Mistweaver is really good. Next we have Li Ming, and the new Aether Walker build actually is pretty decent. So I'm just going to go over that build because everybody already knows the Power Hungry build. But I'll go over that too actually. So level 1 you go Aether Walker, and I'll tell people a secret that nobody knows. If you Aether Walker to get your missiles to 10% bonus damage, and then you throw your Q at a tower, your Q actually does 20% bonus damage to structures and minions. Only on, actually no, not minions, just structures. Because you're supposed to do 50% damage to structures, but the way it's coded is that the reduction on Aether Walker doesn't get applied, so it's like 20% more damage, which is really nice. So, Aether Walker at level 1. Level 4, you have options. I generally like these two. I think Dominance is a trap talent. It doesn't really do too much. You take Triumvirate if you feel very confident with your orbs. You take Charge Blast if you just want extra damage. But I think Triumvirate's better with the Aether Walker build in general. At level 7, you go Calamity. Level 10, usually Wave of Force. You go Disintegrate if you feel as though you have mana issues, but generally Wave of Force is better for the one-shot combo. At 13, you go Illusionist. At 16, you go Diamond Skin. And at 20, you go the Repulsion upgrade to put someone in your team, knock them right into your team, and just one-shot them. So this new build that's emerged, what makes it so good is that you combine all the E-taunts together and you can play extremely aggressive. Now I'm going to go over the second build, and this is the old Li Ming build that was the one-shot build that people used to go. So it's basically Power Hungry level 1, level 4 Charge Blast, Calamity at level 7, Wave of Force at 10. At 13 you go Cannoneer, and Fireflies at 16. So what makes this build so good is you basically get so much burst off of your Cannoneer and your Charge Blast, which give you insane auto attack damage. And then you're putting your Q on a really short cooldown, and you just have your basic damage abilities. When you go this build and you get a reset, you just use the Cannoneer and Charge Blast effects. You just blow everybody up. You can just get a Penta with this build, and it's not that hard. At level 20, you have the option between Tal Rashes and Repulsion. If you feel as though you need damage really badly, even though you don't, Tal Rashes is okay, but I generally take Repulsion 90% of the time just because you can push people right into your team and one-shot them. Next we have TLV. TLV just only has one build that's decent right now, and I'm going to go over it. It's Viking Bribery at level 1. At level 4, you generally go Mercenary Lore to when your team's doing objectives and stuff, and they're fighting 5v4, whatever, you can push some buildings down. Level 7, Spin to Win. Level 10, Play Again. 13, generally Jump's the best choice, just because these two other taunts don't do too much. So it can kind of save your Vikings every now and then. At 16, Largen in Charge is the best talent, because the stun honestly just gives you a lot of control. And at 20, you might actually come in team fights, because at 20 you get Fury of the Swarm. Give me 1 second, guys. So at 20 you get Fury of the Storm, and you spike really hard with the Vikings. And what I mean by that is your push becomes insanely uncontrollable, because you can basically just push all 3 lanes at your will, like the Fury of the Storm procs. And then you can even team fight with your Vikings at 20 with all the talents, if you have to, but I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend playing the map more. Next we have Lieutenant Morales. So
Always a pleasure to see you, Commander.
the thing about Medic is that you have to kind of pick her in the right spots, because I think that the only good level 1 talent on this tier is Cadius Feedback, because I see a lot of medics, they don't take this and they're always out of energy. So being able to pick Medic into a team comp where you're able to constantly auto attack will make Medic like a much better pick. At level 4, you have options. I see a lot of Cellular Reactor and Trauma Trigger. I think Blast Shield just doesn't do that much, so it's not really a talent. If you got like, burst to 1 HP and you don't really want to recall, Cellular Reactor is like not a bad talent. I kind of like Trauma Trigger the most on this tier though, just because of its effect. At level 7, I'd say that the best talent is usually Vanadium Plating. But if they just don't have that much CC at all, um, you can
The
generally
shield is
take
heavy.
physical
Can we start moving
therapy
along?
if it's just slows, and then this sounds not that good. But if like neither of these two are ever useful, prolonged safeguards obviously the best pick because these are all conditional taunts. Level 10, I'd say stim drone 90% of the time because you shouldn't even be picking medic where you need to use the medevac to heal for yourself. Let's say you find yourself in one of those games where they have a lot of dive, where their tank's always going for you. This basically gives you like a mini bubble where they have to break the shield and it can keep you from dying. So it's really useful for that. But you shouldn't be picking medic too often when that's the case. At level 13, I would say that Second Opinion is a really good talent. If you're against like certain team comps with like Zarya, this can be pretty good. And also System Shock is always
The
like
shield is
decent.
heavy. Can we
So
start moving along?
it's generally between these two. I'd say System Shock if like you're playing in a very high elo and you don't think you're gonna be hitting too many grenades. At 16, you just always take this. It's just the best choice. At 20, Cael'thas Reactor 2.0 is not bad. Um, I'd say that hyperactivity is not really a good talent. Don't really take it too much. It's generally just Cael'thas Reactor, and then these two have like a place, but they're very niche. I don't know. These two are more talents you take in like competitive settings. Generally, it's usually Cael'thas Reactor 2.0. I don't know how you pronounce that. Sorry. Next, we have Lucio, who's my favorite healer right now. He's second on the S plus tier, right behind Ana. So the reason why Lucio is so strong right now is he has probably the most utility in the game, which is incredibly nice. He's a character that can basically get picks, get you out of any situation when you're caught, and he has one of the best ultimates in the game in Sound Barrier. So I'm gonna go over the build, and there's only one build on Lucio that's good right now. You go Accelerando at level 1 because you just need the movement speed. Level 4 you go Subwoofer. Level 7 Reverse Imp. Level 10 Sound Barrier. Level 13 you go Slip because the bonus armor is really nice. Level 16 you go up the frequency. And the reason why you don't go Rejuvencia is they both they both basically increase your healing by the same amount, but up the frequency boosts up your Reverse Imp. At level 20 you go House Party. Next we have Lunara. Lunara is not really that strong right now. She's one of the weaker characters. I don't even know if she belongs in the C tier, and the reason for that is because of her lackluster talents. Um, I don't know if this talent got fixed, but it used to be bugged, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But generally, one of these two talents you're going to take at level 1 always. At level 4, Nature's Calling is like usually the best choice, so you can do merc camps and objective control. But if you feel as though like you have like that Greymane or it's not like a map that you really need to do too many mercs on or anything like that, Blossoming Swell honestly isn't that bad of a talent. And the reason why I think it's okay is the range and radius increase. Combine that with Choking Pollen at 7, and you get a pretty decent damage boost. Uh, I know most people still take Splintered Spear, but I think the Choking Pollen build isn't that bad if you can hit your Qs consistently. Otherwise, Splintered Spear is like decent damage, and then Wild Vigor is also decent damage. It's up to preference on this tier. It's all your playstyle. If you're one of those people who goes for like the Q spam with the Q build, where is it like where you go this time, Q build can be decent. I think most of the time you want to be taking Leaping Strikes on Lunara. I know Thornwood Vine is good, but just from the raw numbers and the effects themselves, Leaping Strike gives you the mobility you need to steer clear in team fights and get auto attacks up. Because like you almost never get caught when you take this talent, but I've seen many times with Thornwood Vines, just instant CC blow up. So I'm not a fan of that talent at all. Not saying it's bad, but you have to play a certain style that doesn't suit Lunara to get much damage off. At the 13 tier, all of these except for this one is good, pretty sure. Um, If you feel like you have a lot of chase down potential, Let Them Wither is really good. Uh, Prayer Spell Shield for the mages. Abolish Magic is also really good when you're playing against certain characters. Like for instance, Nazebo, who's like getting near his level 20, you see him stacking. And just like it's just basically a cleanse. So it's not that bad. Just in general, removing disabling effects. Level 16, if you're the Q build, you go this. But usually with the regular build, you want to be going one of these two. So if you feel as though you just can't auto attack because you have too many threats, you take Starwood Spirit. If you feel as though you are snowballing and you know that you're gonna be able to constantly apply your passive and you're not really playing scared, you take Unfair Advantage. And at 20, you're usually taking Intensifying Toxins. It's a very good talent. All other talents on this tier don't really do that much. Next we have Maev, one of the characters that I main, or used to main. I played her like a good 500 games, so I know all the talents perfectly. Level 1, you always go Nasha's Momentum. It's just the best talent. Gives you insane wave clear, merc clear, everything. I mean, you don't really use it on waves, but like, it's just like, if you if you pull, okay, let's say you E in, right? You E in onto two people. There's two people standing here. You E in, you grab them. They're now on your chain, so you can auto attack them. You don't have to pull them. If you have two people on your chain, you can just stand still and click Nishas, and your attack will hit the first person, bounce the other, and then bounce back because they're both on your chains. So you basically do 300% auto attack damage when this is up. And it's always up if you can just hit a 1Q on two people. And it's easy when two people are chained. You just Q them. Level 4 Blade Dance is usually the best talent because you're usually always in melee range. You only take Pin Down when you just have to play extremely far back, but usually that's almost never the case, like 1% of the time. Level 7, you usually always go Loon's Wrath. These other two just don't do enough. Level 10, you go Containment Disc versus tanks that just you have to walk past if you can't deal with. For instance, in Arthas, you always take Containment Disc, Garrosh, if like you know you can kill someone in between the time he's disc, because like Garrosh is a character that can zone an entire team by himself if played properly. You go Warden's Cage whenever you have enough pieces of burst damage or wombo combo, and I'd say like 1.5 to 2 pieces is enough, because you yourself can do a ton of damage with just Cage by itself. Generally, Containment Disc is also a very good ult, so this is honestly preference. I'd say it's literally 50-50. If you're going for a wombo, this is really good. If you need to stop one person from zoning your entire team, Containment Disc is also really good. At 13, when you go Cage, Shadow Armor is a little bit better. When you go Disc, Bladed Armor is a little bit better. 16 tier, you're usually always going Armored Assault because your auto attack damage is so high, and it also buffs Blade Dance at level 4 because this is physical damage. At level 20, Huntress is the best talent on this tier, and the reason why Huntress is so strong is, remember what I just told you about Nisha's Momentum and just grabbing two people and the attacks bouncing? Well, now you get 40% attack speed and movement speed on top of it. So just chase them down with Nishas and blow them up. It's a very good combination. Next we have Mal'Ganis. Mal'Ganis is an interesting character. I feel like a lot of his talents are decent, but I'm going to go over the build I like the most. So I think that Vampiric Aura is the best talent usually, but all three of these talents have uses. Generally, this is the best talent. Level 4, I like Fueled by Torment. It makes you like extremely tanky. Level 7, I think that Will of the Con Race is the best talent. It's just that on this tier, there's not really too much going on. I guess it's just too much of a conditional talent, and this is a little wonky. If you know you can get value out of it, Black Claws isn't bad, but it forces you to play in a style that's very predictable, which is bad. At level 10, Dark Conversion is extremely good because you become like a zoning monster when you get this ultimate. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong ultimate. Carry-on Swarm is a really good ult that makes you zone the enemy team because you just basically, you're zoning their team, they're all on top of you, and then you pop Carry-on Swarm and they all have to back up and you're full life again. Level 13, I would say that the increased movement speed and duration is the best talent, but you can also go Blood Rush. This is also pretty good. It's basically preference. I see this a lot recently, but Blood Rush isn't bad either. At 16, I think Plague Bats is usually the best talent. You just don't really get the value from this talent that much. And I don't know. It's kind of a meme. I actually want to say this in this video. If you're in comms with someone and you're like close friends with them and they don't mind doing this wonky strategy, you can honestly pop this and then the other person. I did this with my friend once. It was hilarious. You know, a blast doing it. You just let him be your eyes. You just get him to say, left, left, up, down, down, right. And when I did it the first time with my friend, he was so confused, and then everybody in the voice was just laughing their asses off. So it was actually really funny. But honestly, I think it's pretty viable if you're in comms and you can like figure it out. But I don't know who wants to play with the Mal'Ganis main. Otherwise, this is the best talent. At level 20, I think Seeker Swarm is an incredibly good upgrade. This talent just doesn't have too much value, but it's like it's okay. The thing about this talent is that it's like it just doesn't do that much. It like has two effects that are both really small, and then this talent's not bad. It's actually viable. It's just Seeker Swarm is so good that you usually take this one. Because the way you're supposed to be using Carry On Swarm is that you use it to zone the enemy team, and then because you're zoning them, you're out of position because you're basically isolating the enemy teams from the tank. If you blind them right after you Seeker Swarm, though, you can just walk right out and you're full life. Nice and easy. Next, we're going to Malfurion. Malf is an interesting character in the fact that he basically got his stasis removed and he got a lot of his good talents like reworked in weird ways like rejuvenation. So there's honestly only one build that's kind of good. You go Celestial Alignment at level 1, level 4 you go Vengeful Roots, level 7 you take Cleanse. If they don't have really much CC at all, Wild Growth actually isn't that terrible. Level 10 you always take Twilight Dream. Tranquility is just not good. I mean, even if like people on your team are dying and you need to heal them, you can just dream and then they can't do any damage. So it's just always better. At level 13, it's pretty close, but I'd honestly say that slowing enemy heroes is way better than having movement speed. And the reason for this is that if you're slowing enemy heroes, it makes it way easier for you to hit your moonfires. And also, the slow is actually pretty considerable. 25% for 2 seconds is not that bad, and you're constantly using it. At level 16, the best talent is Nature's Balance. This is what helps you get double or triple hits on your Moonfire. So you get those fat heals, because you get healed basically for each person hit with the Moonfire. At level 20, it's just Lunar Shower. It's the only choice that's really good. Life Flume's like not terrible, but it just doesn't do enough. And Astral Communication is kind of a troll talent. Next we have Malthael. I'm only going to go over the build that I think is really good. I think the Tormented Souls has like some viability versus double healers, but generally it's not that good. So level 1, it's usually just Fear the Reaper. If you think you're going to be double soaking on a Pale Horse is decent, but if you're not, Fear the Reaper is better. Level 4, you go Die Alone because it makes your soul waning very strong and you beat a lot of the bruisers. At level 7, you usually always go Cold Hands, and this makes it so that you can kite people and not get killed so easily. I know a lot of people take Massacre, but when you don't take Cold Hands, it just makes it so much easier for you to die. I think that this is the best talent. Only in niche situations you take Touch of Death. For instance, when you're playing against like a Sonya with Whirlwind and you want to just dominate the one-on-one, or they have double support with like a weird combination, like Lucio, Alexstrasza, stuff like that, and you can get a lot of value out of using Touch of Death, or even like an Ancestral Healing Rhaegar. Um, Level 10, Last Rites is usually always the pick, only Tormented in weird games where it's double support. The buff didn't really do anything. 13, you usually take Ethereal Existence if they have two serious auto attackers like Thrall, Raynor, Greymane, Raynor, stuff like that. If they have a lot of CC that you really need to cleanse, Inevitable End is good too, but it's not that good of a talent. It's a little overrated. And Soul Siphon's not bad either. Like all four of these talents are pickable. You just pick this when they have a lot of physical. Pick this against a lot of mages. You pick this against a lot of CC, and then this is just like the general pick where like they're beefy, and none of these three really apply too much. 16, you usually take Soul Collector because this really increases your healing and damage total. It'll keep you alive if you take this talent. The other two talents on this tier just aren't that good. I think even with the Tormented Souls, like resetting your Ray Strike, I think even when you go Tormented, I don't think this talent's that useful. But I mean, it could have like some use in the future if like other talents get reworked. At level 20, you just always take this no matter what. There's no discussion. Next we have Medivh, and I'm going to go over the low level build and the high level build for Medivh. So if you're a Medivh in lower ranked games, this is the build you generally should go. You should go Raven's Intellect level 1. Level 4, you should go Raven Familiar. Level 7, Force of Magic, because you're boosting your damage a lot. Arcane Explosion is only good if you're extremely good at Medivh, and you're preventing like blow-ups. But Force of Magic is generally the better talent. At level 10, you go Polybomb most of the time in lower level games. Level 13, Enduring Will, and 16, you go Arcane Charge. When you get Arcane Charge at 16 and you get Force of Magic's 30% boost at level 7, your Qs start hitting like really hard. You honestly top the damage if you can get a lot of Qs going in a row. You get decent protects. Level 20, if you go the Polybomb build, honestly, all three of these are okay. You obviously can't take that talent because you're not leyline. Now I'm going to go over the high skill capped Medivh build. So you go Portal Mastery at level 1. Level 4, you either go one of these two. Mage Armor, if like you're really coordinated with like tank engages and you don't need the Raven Familiar. Level 7, you go... Honestly, both of these are okay in a higher skill cap game. But I'd honestly say Force of Magic is still the best choice. Level 10, you go Leyline Seal because your team's going to be able to blow someone up with this combo. At level 13, you take Enduring Will still. It's still the best talent on the tier. And then at 16, here's where things get different. You take Temporal Flux in high ranking Medivh games. And the reason why is this talent makes your leyline basically a 5 or 6 second cooldown. I'm not kidding. You could go play, a quick match or whatever, take this talent and you'll see what I mean. But the problem is, even if you have a 5 or 6 second leyline, if you're playing in gold or whatever, it's not going to get any value, especially compared to something like this. But in a Grandmaster game, you'll just blow someone up every time with leyline. At level 20, when you go this build, you always go Medivh cheats because you can get 4 or 5 people into the leyline if you use it perfectly. Next we have Mephisto. I'm gonna go over the build I see the most and the build I like the most. So generally, Unyielding Power at level 1. At level 4, you can still go Static Barrier. I see honestly these two a lot. I think that Static Barrier might be a little bit better, even though it's still Q build. Level 7, I'm pretty sure you can go... I forgot what all these do. pretty sure Ghostly Armor is the best talent at level 7. 10, you take Durance of Hate if they have those, like, you know, beefy frontline team comps with, like, the Zarya and stuff like that. You can get, like, a big ultimate. In games where you feel like you're gonna need an execute, Consume Souls is still decent. But I'd say Durance of Hate is, like, the pick, like, 70 or 80, 70, 60% of the time, actually. Consume Souls is just like if you're popping off and you need to execute, it's not bad. It's still really good if you have an Ana on your team and you're doing that stuff, that combo. At 13, you go Abhorred Skull. At 16, you go Lightning Reaction. It's not bad, but it's just that these other two talents don't do that much. I see sometimes people take Static Field too. It's decent, but that's like preference on these two. I don't really see this talent too much, but it might be good too, actually. I'm not sure. I'm not too sure about the 16th tier for Mephisto, so just pick your preference. On 20, if you went to Durance, obviously this is really good. Mimic doesn't really do that much. And Shade Lord is not really that good either. I don't know. I think it's Unspeakable Horror is not a bad talent. If you can get a big one off, you just instantly win the game. Next we have Murden. Murden's not really a high tier tank, so we're gonna go over all the talents that I think make Murden at least decent. So you have to go Perfect Storm at level 1 because you need to be, you know, kind of doing semi reasonable damage on Murden. Only time you go Third Wind is if you feel as though you have a lot of damage dealers and you just want to soak like all the damage so you're 1 life, and then, you know, re-heal back to full with Third Wind. I like playing that style of Murden more. I don't like Perfect Storm at all myself. But to get value out of Murden, you need to go a certain build, or else all the other tanks are better. At level 4, you still go Thunderburn. Level 7, you go give him the Axe, which basically these two talents have synergy together. Level 10, you go Haymaker because you're basically trying to create picks. Abathur is not going to help you win the game because Haymaker, basically, it's the only way Murden can get like really good engagers off and get picks for his team. 13, you go Healing Static, and 16, you can go either Dwarf Launch or Stone Form. If you're going for this kind of like combination of talents, Dwarf Launch is usually better, but Stone Form if you want to be more tanky. And 20, honestly, Grand Slam and Rewind are both really good. I like Grand Slam better, but Rewind's also really good. Alright, moving on down the list, we have Murky. Murky is actually a pretty good character in this game. What people don't know is that you can go bribe and proxy through minion waves between the forts to get your stacks, and then on maps like Brax's Holdout, if you can just steal their turret, you get you just get insane value because you'll get 2 turrets every single time and they'll have 0. And even though Murky's not really like the best hero, I think a 2 turret advantage every single time on Braxis. I mean not Braxis, Volskaya, I'm sorry. Makes it really good. Level 4, when you go to Bribe build, you always go Tougher Fish because you really need to get your stacks, and if they break your Pufferfish, you're just never getting any stacks, obviously. Level 7, I kind of like Slippery when wet with this build, but yeah, I don't really think these two talents have any place. Octograb at level 10. At 13, you can go Safety Bubble, and then at 16, I think Toxic Buildup is the best choice. But Fish Oil is not bad either, actually. Actually, I think Fish Oil is better with this build. It's normally the auto attack build that you go Toxic Buildup. I'm sorry. Fish Oil is the choice you take at 16 with this build. And at 20, I like Big Tuna Kahuna, but I see a lot of And the Shark too. Making Inky is like the Q build. I mean the slime build, but Big Tuna Kahuna just makes you like actually, with the R Octograb, it makes you kind of actually a legitimate hero. So it's not that bad. Next we have Nazebo. There's only one legitimate build for Nazebo, so I'm gonna go through this quickly. It's just Toads level 1. You can either go either of these two, but I think Big Voodoo is the best one for your ritual stacks. Level 7 Toads of Hugeness, level 10 Gargantuan. 13 you can go any of these three depending on the situation. Obviously you take this one in a more general case. You take this one if they don't have a lot of auto attackers, and you take this one if they have like a lot of dive and like one-shot ultimates. Level 16 with this build, you can either go Spider Colony or Soul Harvest. I personally think Soul Harvest is better, but I see a lot of Spider Colony too. I think Soul Harvest is like the better choice 80% of the time. And at 20, you obviously go Vile Infection because you're playing for your scaling. So what Vile Infection does is it just gives you this big damage boost on your poison. If you can hit like Fat Toads, you just do so much. So that's what makes Nazebo's level 20 spike pretty good. Overall, though, if I had to rate Nazebo, he is a D tier character, maybe even worse than that, to be honest. Next, we have Nova, who is, in my opinion, the worst hero in the game. If any Blizzard employees are watching this, she actually needs some buffs because she's very useless right now. But I'll go over the build anyways. So level 1, you go Covert Ops. Level 4, you go Rapid Projection. Level 7, 1 in the Chamber. And the reason you go these talents together is to still keep your mana in check and give you the guaranteed on hitting your Q. This will basically give you a spammable E to harass and dismount people like crazy, and then it works towards your 1 in the chamber. It basically makes your hollow decoy such a short cooldown that you can just get free 1 in the chamber procs. Level 10, I like Precision Strike way more, but honestly, triple tap isn't bad. It's honestly preference. They nerfed Precision Strike so much that one charge of triple tap is honestly almost the same thing. So it's up to you, whatever you want. I'd say 50-50 on these. Level 13, you go double tap. The reason you take double tap is at 16, you go crippling shot to give vulnerability on your full combo. And 20, you can either go rewind or precision strike. That's your choice. But honestly, Nova is the worst character in the game right now, so I don't really want to talk too much about that. We have Orphea next. I'm just gonna go over the build that everybody knows about, and I think is the strongest build by far. I've tested the Backbiter build, and I don't think it's that good anymore. So I think the best build is Ancestral Strength level 1, Fright at level 4, Mind Devour level 7, Eternal Feast at level 10, at level 13, not Determination, sorry, wrong here, Invasive Miasma at 13, and Bonds of Anguish at 16. I got them mixed up a little bit. And at 20, Eldritch Conduit's the best talent. And this is generally the safest Orphea build that gets you like the top damage every game. I honestly highly recommend playing Orphea if you're like new to the game and trying to find a new character. I think she's in the A tier right now on my tier list, but she's literally the highest on the A tier. So she's honestly a very good pick, and she's not very difficult to play. Once you get some games under your belt, I'd say like 5 to 10 games, you can start dominating if you can do the combos properly. The only problem about Orphea is that she has a decent amount of counter picks, which like I had listed in the S tier, like Greymane, Sonya, Genji, and then most of like the annoying tanks like Diablo and Garrosh. Other than that, she thrives versus like these picks that don't really like engage onto her. Even on some of the ones that engage onto her, if they don't have enough dive, you just kite them forever. So she's a very strong pick. Next we have Probius. Probius is honestly a very good character, but the only way I see him getting value is as a double soaking character or as a counter pick to the Rexar matchup that so many people talk about how you can beat Rexar with Probius. But I'll go over like talents I like. So I think that gathering minerals you take if you want to go a scaling build. Um, you go warp resonance if you're just going for the big combos in the late game. And this is the talent you go for more wave clear, but it's generally not the best talent. I don't like it. I like these two more. I think warp resonance is the best talent on this tier, but we'll talk about that a little later. So level 4, shield capacitor is a really good talent. This talent just doesn't have too much use, and this one doesn't really have too much use either. You're not really worried about spell damage too much as Proteus. Level 7 on Proteus, I'd say tower defense is pretty good, and particle accelerator is pretty good. But this tier does, like none of these talents are that good on this tier. Level 10, you normally go null gate and you just sit in the bush and just do your combo when someone's rotating. You go pylon overcharge if you're going for like the team fights. Null gate is like the one-shot build, and pylon overcharge is like for team fighting. Generally, I like null gate way better. On 13, it's honestly preference on like what your team comp is. Like aggressive matrix is usually like okay, but usually your teammates aren't like that close to your pylon power fields always. But this sounds pretty good. This one's also really good because you're giving mana to people. Shield battery is also good actually, but I think that shield battery is a little overrated. I don't know. I see most Probeases take this and this. Um, but I don't think this is a bad talent. It depends on what the team comp is, to be honest. Like basically, if you have a lot of characters that run out of mana, this is really like useful because people don't have to recall as much. But generally, it's just this one or this one for the most part. This one's more useful for team fighting in general. Next, we have 16. Where's the overpowered one? I think it was this one. Enemies are slowed more closer they are to the center of the up to 16. Yeah. So basically, this talent can be really good with like the no gate combination, and also interference is really good. Honestly, these two talents just aren't that useful. Or whoops! Oh, this was the one I was trying to find. Enemies continue to be slowed for 3 seconds after their last. I'm sorry. This was the talent that was really good. I like misread them a little bit. It's just basically the slow lingering is like really good because I'm pretty sure the slow amount's a really high number, 25%. This is only when they're in it. It doesn't last for 9 seconds actually. Once it blows up, they're not slowed anymore. At 20, Proteus loop isn't bad. If you went the other ult, this isn't bad. The no gate upgrade isn't that good. You only really do this when you only really take this talent when you're going for the one shot combo in a bush. You just want it to last forever. But honestly, like all 4 of these talents are decent. I just say if you took pylon overcharge, you should take construct additional pylons. If you took null gate, you take one of these two. Gatekeeper is not really good unless you're doing cheesy stuff. Yeah, I kind of like these two. Maybe shoot 'em up's a little bit better than Proteus Loop, but it's pretty close. Next we have Rag. Generally the best build for Rag and the safest build is E level 1, E level 4. You go blistering attacks at 7. Either ult at 10. Honestly, if you need wave clear, lava wave's better. If you have a lot of CC, you just drop the Silver Smash on someone and one-shot them. 13, you go Tempered Flame. 16, you go Blast of Echo. And then 20, honestly, you can go Heroic Difficulty. That's really good. You can go Submerge if you just need it. Otherwise, like if you don't need it, it's not a good choice. Otherwise, it's one of these two, and then Lava Wave 2 charges isn't bad if you're like really need wave clear, like you're down double catapults or something. Your team doesn't have too much wave clear, but generally, heroic difficulty is the best choice. Next, we move on to Rainer, and there's honestly only one Rainer build that's very good. Level 1, you go Ace in the Hole. Exterminator is only good on Battlefield of Eternity, otherwise, it's not that good. Veteran Marksman only if you're trying to counter Garrosh, and that's it. Level 4, you always go Fight or Flight just because it outvalues these two so much. And it makes it so that you can play a more frontline Rainer and not be too worried about your position. At level 7, you take Unstable Compound because it buffs your level 1 Ace in the Hole. Level 10, I like Rainer's Raiders better, but I'd say it's pretty close. I'd say 60% of the time you take Rainer's Raider, and 40% of the time, or I guess like times where like you are snowballing and really want to push objectives and push the map, like when you're pushing forts. But honestly, Rainer's Raider overall usually is better. The only time Rainer's Raider is bad is if they're playing defensive the entire game, which usually doesn't happen too much. At a level 13, Giddy Up and Debilitating rounds are both good. You take Giddy Up if you want to go Bounty Hunter at 16. If you want to go Paint Them Red, Debilitating rounds is also pretty good. You don't really use it for the increased slow. Just a 3 seconds off on that combined with Paint Them Red is extremely potent. You take Bounty Hunter when you feel like you can honestly kill the tanks pretty easily and the game's not too difficult. If you feel like you need to play more of a frontline Rainer, Debilitating rounds and Paint Them Red isn't bad. And at 20 on boss maps, you take Execute. When your team comp is very just strong in general, like you have a lot of good DPS and coordination, weak spot acquired is extremely good. And then none of the above when it's not a boss map and you just don't have very good teammates. Duskwing is very good. Next we have Rhaegar, and Rhaegar, in my opinion, is one of the worst healers. I even think Whitemane is better than him right now, but I'll go over the build I think is the best. So level 1, you take Wolf Run so you can get out of a lot of sticky situations. Level 4, you usually always take Healing Totem because you need more sustained healing because Rhaegar is one of the worst sustained healers in the game. Even with Ancestral, his healing is very low. Level 7, you always go Cleanse. Level 10, always Ancestral. 13, you go Earth Shield. And 16, it's your choice, but I think Rising Storm isn't that bad now. All three of these choices are viable. So if you're in a game where you're snowballing super hard and they have a lot of beefy tanks that don't do too much damage, like for instance like Stitches and stuff like that, I don't think Hunger of Wolf is that bad, but Earthen Grasp is usually the best talent. Just because a 90% slow is basically like a root. They're basically the same exact thing. It just makes your totem basically root for a second. But yeah, Rising Storm isn't bad either. All three of these choices are all good, and you leave it to preference on the situation. If you need like CC, if you need more damage because they're like really beefy, or you just want the Lightning Bond, Untalented Shield. Level 20, you always take Farseer's Blessing no matter what, because all the talents on this tier don't really compare to it at all. Next we have Rexxar. So Rexxar has a couple of builds. I'd say that level 1, you go Easy Prey when you're not really solo laning on a solo lane map. And then all other situations like even Volskaya, Braxis, Bird of Prey is usually better. Because Bird of Prey honestly gives you an insane damage buff on the minions, and you can basically have your Misha on like the point on like Dragonshire and Braxis, and you can just like insta clear the minion wave while they're trying to like kill your Misha. Level 4 Hunter Gatherer is usually the best choice because the reward is insane. If you know for a fact you're just never gonna die and it's not a globe map, Animal Husbandry is pretty good. In some matchups, it's really easy for the solo laner to kill your bear. You have to take Hungry Bear in those matchups, or you're not going to do well. Level 7, I think Aspect of the Beast is always the best talent. I know that the auto attack build people go with Taking Flight, But honestly, you can just go Aspect of the Beast and still go that talent, which I'm going to go over in a second. Level 10, Unleash the Boars and Bestial Route, they're both pretty good. I think Unleash the Boars is a little bit better just because the slow is really nice and the 20 upgrade's also really good. At 13, you either take Dire Beast or Aspect of the Hawk. I think you take Aspect of the Hawk if you know you'll be able to auto attack a lot. If you kind of can't play like aggressively, Dire Beast just does so much damage. It's also really good. You don't really take Wildfire Bear anymore. At 16, you always go Thrill of the Hunt, and at 20, the upgrade's pretty good, honestly. Frenzy of the Calendar is pretty good. Out of these choices, I don't think Spirit Bond and Hardened Skin are good, like either of them. Moving on to the next character. So Samuro is not the best solo queue character, but in competitive he's an S tier character. So I'm gonna go over what I think is the best build for Storm League, and then I'll go over the best build for competitive as well. So the best build for Storm League is you go Way of Illusion level 1, level 4 you go Mirage, level 7 Phantom Pain, 10 you can go either ult, but if you're good at Samurai, Illusion Master is always better. Level 13 you normally go Shikuchi or Kawarimi, but I think Shikuchi is better against good players. At least this is always the better talent. At level 16 you usually always go Harsh Winds with this build, and 20 you go either of these ults. You can also go Wind Strider, but I don't really like it that much. But it's good too, I guess. I think that you can do some pretty good things with both of these though. Actually, you don't take this when you go Blaze Storm. You just only upgrade the 3-blade style. Now for the competitive build, I see a lot of Way of the Blade level 1. Level 4, honestly, you can go any of these 3 when you go the Way of the Blade level 1. But I think one with the Wind is honestly the best one. With this build, or Mirage, one of these 2. It just depends like who you're playing against. If you're playing against, like for instance, the Sonya or Malthael, you need Mirage. But if you're playing against certain like physical attack characters, one with the Wind isn't bad. It used to actually be the meta pick, but it got nerfed a little bit. Level 7, you go Burning Blade with this build, and it's not bad. Level 10, always Illusion Master. 13, still Shikuchi. 16, you go Merciless Strikes. And 20, you go 3-blade style again. And that's like the competitive build, but I don't know how much that's going to help too much with this tier list, because it's more about solo queue stuff. Next we have Sergeant Hammer. Level 1 you always go Ambush, just because the burst damage is really good. Level 4 you go Siege Tactics. Because Unstoppable is just extremely valuable. Level 7 Hovering Siege Mode is pretty good. Depending on the map, Graduating Range can be good too, but it's kind of map dependent. Level 10, I like Napalm Strike more, but if you feel like you have like a bursty comp and you can one-shot someone, Blunt Force Gun isn't bad, but overall it's been nerfed a little bit and I like Napalm Strike better. At 13, I think that Hypercooling Engines is pretty good, and Entrenched has like some use, but it's not really like the best talent, so that's a little bit preference too, but I think Hypercooling Engines is the best talent on that tier. At level 16, I feel as though the Giant Killer is extremely good. You can also take Executioner if you have a lot of CC on your team, but Giant Killer is not bad. At at the 20 tier, Ultra Capacitors is really good. If you don't feel like you can get too much damage off in team fights with auto attacks, Advanced Lava Strikes isn't bad, but usually Ultra Capacitors is the best talent. Next we have Sonya, my main character, the
The
one that
ancients
I
walked with
climb to
us.
top 10 with every season. Sonya actually has a lot of versatility with her talents, but I'm gonna go over the two main builds. Um, so level one, you almost always go block unless they have like those diva tracer kind of picks, Tychus, Genji, and even then, block isn't too bad just in general, but war paints is better. Level four, you always go shots of fury. It's very niche when you go hurricane. Just the amount of stats this talent gives, the 50 fury and 40% auto attack damage, it's extremely valuable. Level 7, you're usually going Poison Spear if they have a lot of CC. If you only have like 1, maybe 2 CC, Life Funnel's better. You usually never take Battle Rage. At 10, it's always Wrath no matter what. And at 13, it's usually always Ruthlessness. The only time you take No Escape is when you have a lot of characters on your team who do a lot of damage and you don't need Ruthlessness. But generally, with Poison Spear, Shots of Fury, and Ruthlessness altogether, you can one-shot backliners really quickly if you get a good flank going. Level 16, you always go Nerves of Steel, and 20, you go Ignore Pain. And you honestly kind of become like a mini raid boss at level 20 with the shield and the Ignore Pain because you have so much defense that you can just rip people's heads off 1v5 and then sustain their damage. So yeah, Sonya is also a S tier, so I highly recommend giving her a try if you want to improve your play. But Sonya's not for everybody. You have to understand the ins and outs on how to play her. She kind of has like this Yasuo effect for League of
Get
Legends,
on
where
with
people
this.
think they're
I'm running
so
out of
unstoppable
fuel.
that they just stay in the middle of 5 people no matter what. But you just need to know what you can and can't do. So next we have Stitches. I think if you have a decent healer, you go Patchwork Creation. If you want to go for really good scaling, like late game build, Hungry for More is pretty good. Plus, it's fun getting globes. Level 4, you usually go Chop Chop or Playtime. I kind of like Chop Chop more because it gives you more wave clear. Uh, it's just not that bad. I don't know. I mean, whoops, I got these mixed up. Is this the one that does wave clear? Whoops. This time gives you good wave clear. You just drop playtime in the middle of a team and like on a wave in the middle of a team, and you get more wave clear. I honestly got these two mixed up. I thought it was Chop Chop. That was the one that did that. So level 7, you can go either Blight or Tenderizer. The Cannibalized taunt isn't that good. Like I mean, you can take it sometimes, but it doesn't get too much value. Tenderizer is just like a permanent slow that like you just don't let people go like move like from anywhere. I think Tenderizer just in general is the best talent, and I take it 80% of the time. Level 10, just always Gorge, like 90% of the time. You only take Butcher Bile in like I guess lower ranked games, and like nobody follows up on your gorges. But in general, you just gorge people, take them right to your towers, and kill them. It's always been the best thing to do with Stitches. If you're taking Putrid Bile and you're just trying to play like a tank, you might as well just not pick Stitches and pick ETC or Garrosh or Diablo. Um, at level 13, you take the Last Rate talent. These two talents aren't too useful. At 16, Pulverize isn't good. Meat Hook isn't good. Fishing Hook is the best talent. I just wanted to see what these did, honestly. You always take Fishing Hook no matter what because it increases your potential to get big gorges. And it's like the hook range is really small. In fact, like getting hook gorges is not that easy until level 16. Then it becomes way easier. Now level 20, usually you just always go either Hungry Stitches or you go one of these two. But I think that Hungry Stitches is usually always better because it becomes a peel tool. Putrid Bile Upgrade doesn't really do anything even if it lasts 6 seconds longer. Um, this talent is only super niche. You only take it when you literally really need to stay alive in a fight, and The extra charge just gives you a lot of sustain. And Shambling Horror is like really good versus teams with like a lot of slows, but it's also really niche. And I think the passive effect on this isn't too bad, but Hungry Stitches is just way better. I feel like you can instantly win a fight if you get 5 people on your belly, which isn't that hard to do. Next we have Stukov. I think that the new level 1 reactive ballista spore is the best talent. Honestly, at level 4, both of these talents are kind of good, but I think one good spread is still really good. And I think Vigorous Reuptake is also decent, but it's just preference. I think that Vigorous Reuptake is the talent I would take the most often out of the 3. With a new level 1, that like the way it works, that you get reset on your W and instantly spread a weighted postule. It doesn't have too much like what's the word synergy with targeted incision because you're popping like a bunch of things. So I think that you can go the long pitch a little bit and it's not that bad. And I don't know, growing infestation has its place if you have like the right team comp, but it's like team comp dependent. Level 10, I think Massive Shove is always the best talent. I don't think Flailing Swipe is good. It's only good in like certain situations where you need to stop everybody on their whole team at once, which is usually pretty rare. Massive Shove, you just push out the carry who's like the strongest, and you're good.
Suffering begets more suffering.
Now on the 13 tier, you take the one that roots them when you get a waiting a postulate virulent reaction, and then 16. Honestly, Super Strain is really good versus certain characters like Johanna because they're always stunning you. Pox Populi is usually the most general talent, and his talent just isn't that good, even with Universal Carrier. Because of like some of the old talents and like the change to the level 1 talent, you don't really need Universal Carrier as much. Level 20, push come to shove isn't the worst talent in the world, but it's like a little troll. You don't really need to take it. Top off is like okay, but it's not really that good. And this time doesn't really do anything. So most of these 20s just aren't that good. I'd honestly take either top off or push come to shove. It's whatever your preference is. Next we have Sylvanas.
The Dark Lady.
Might of the Banshee Queen is the Q build that people go when they want to play safe. So I'm gonna go over the safe build first, then I'm gonna go over the scaling build. So it's Q level 1, level 4 Possession, level 7 Barb Shot, level 10 Wailing Arrow, 13 Windrunner or Remorselessness. I like Windrunner better, but if you don't feel like you're gonna need to eat too much, Remorselessness can be decent. But I think Windrunner overall is better. Level 16 Life Drain and level 20 Bolt of the Storm or Withering Barrage. Now the dangerous build. So this is more of like an insurance policy game plan. If you make it to like 20 with 200 stacks, you just blow everybody up. So this is the W build. You go W level 1, level 4 Possession, level 7 Festering Wounds, level 10 Wailing Arrow, 13 you go Windrunner to get the double E, 16 you go Life Drain, and 20 you go Bolt of the Storm. The reason why this build is good is Windrunner gives you 2 E's. Festering Wounds instantly applies 3 stacks, which starts your stacking right away as soon as you start autoing. And you get 2 E's on top of it, which is really nice. Next we have Tassadar. He just only has one build that's really that good. So you go W level 1, you go Armor level 4, Psionic Projection level 7. Both of these ults are good. I kind of like Archon better, but it's preference. I think that you only take Force Wall when you're snowballing really hard and you need it. Otherwise, Archon's always good. 13, I would say that Nullification is always the best talent, but sometimes you might need to take Deep Shift if like there's that one person who's just always focusing you. 16, you take Double Storm, and 20 you go Unlimited Archon. See how many heroes we have left. 1, 2, 7, 12, 16. Alright, not that much left. So we have Thrall now. Thrall, honestly, has only one build that I think is legitimately good. I know a lot of people are taking Crash Lightning these days, but I don't think it's good at all. You might as well just pick a different character. So the build I think is the most optimal is Echo of Elements at level 1. Level 4 you go Manatide. And then level 7 you have a choice between these two. I think Follow Through if you're not playing against a Bruiser. If you're playing against a Bruiser, Ancestral Wrath. Level 10 I think Sundering more often than not. Earthquake is actually the better ult, but the way the meta is shaped, Sundering usually gets more value because there's a lot of backliners in this meta. So Sundering overall is really good, and I think you'll have like a higher win rate taking this ultimate overall. Level 13 Frostwolf's Grace. Level 16 you take either Tempest Fury or Thunderstorm. Since you're not going the Wolf build, this town doesn't really have a place. This town is pretty good just in the sense that the slow effect is really nice. You don't even need the bonus damage. But if you know how to play around it properly, it's pretty good. But I kind of like Tempest Fury the most just because it's big damage. And then at 20, you just go Windrush always. Next we have Tracer. Tracer is like a high scaling character who grows into the highest auto attack damage character at level 16. So I'm just going to go over the main build that everybody goes. So you go Pulse Strike level 1. This gives you insane bomb time. You can get it every 15-20 seconds if you're auto attacking the whole entire time. You go Parting Gift at level 4. The only time you really take untouchables is when you're snowballing really hard in the early game and you feel as though you won't really die too much against your team comp. But I think Parting Gift's always better. Level 7 you take Bullet Time because the other two choices don't really do anything anymore. Level 10 you go Quantum Spike always. Level 13 Ricochet. This is when you start scaling into a monster because now you basically have 1.5 AD. Level 16 you take Locked and Loaded, and what ends up happening is your 140% damage ricochets for another 70. So you're basically doing 2.1 auto attack damage, which is insane. And at 20 you always take Get Stuffed. Tracer is really good in the late game, but early game she's really weak. That's why I wouldn't really recommend her for everybody. Next we have Tychus. Tychus is kind of out of the meta right now, just because there's a lot of stuff that does well into him in the ranged melee assassin pool. But I'll go over the main build that I think Tychus can thrive under. So you go Dash level 1, level 4 you always go in the rhythm because you want to scale well. Level 7 quarterback because the range is really bad when you don't have that talent. Level 10 it's honestly preference, they're both very good. Level 13 you can either go Neo Steel Coating or That's the Stuff. I like Neo Steel Coating better because when you take this level 4 talent, it makes the heal take a really long time to pop up. And if you don't have like proper peel, you're just going to die. Level 16 you go Titan's Grenade. And then level 20, honestly, I feel as though if you go Odin, you need to go Big Red Button. But if you go Laser, Bob and Weave is actually very good now. So I honestly recommend this talent if you took the Laser level 10. Next we have Tyrael. Tyrael is one of the best scaling tanks in the game. And the reason for that is if the game comes down to 5v5 team fights, his raw base stats are way higher than everybody else. One of the problems that Tyrael suffers from is the fact that the meta tanks right now all have very good matchups. And also, he doesn't have a very good early game. But I'll go over the build that I think is the best and scales the best. So, level 1 you go Justice for All. Level 4 you go Stalwart Angel, which gives you extremely good tankiness when you have your sword down. Level 7 you go Swift Retribution or you go Reciprocate. I'd say most of the time you go Swift Retribution, like 80%. You only go Reciprocate when you feel as though your teammates don't really need the movement speed and attack speed, which is very low time. 100% of the time you take Sanct. Level 13, this is when you start getting really good scaling. So level 13 you go Law and Order, and when you're peeling for your carries, you get these big damage smites like 500-600, and your shield's just constantly off cooldown when you hit multiple people with smite. Level 16, you go Burning Halo, and the amount of damage you get when you go this build is actually pretty insane. You can also go Smite the Wicked, but I don't think it's as good as Burning Halo. And Ragic Reforging isn't really that good unless you're going the Holy Ground build. And I don't think Holy Ground's even better than either of these choices, except for Boss Masks, where Holy Ground's okay. But I don't think you should be playing Tyrael if you're going Holy Ground, because he doesn't scale that well. You're probably going to be losing team fights, even if you're able to get bosses. At level 20, I like Holy Arena the best. I don't think these other two taunts do too much. Getting a 25% damage boost is actually insane. So that's Tyrael. Next we have Tyrande. I'm going to go through this pretty fast because the talents are pretty obvious. So you always go Luna's Chosen level 1. Level 4, you always go Lunar Blaze, except for when you want to, when you're on BOE and you want to get the bonus damage on the Immortal. Whoops, wrong button. Level 7, you always go Cleanse, unless they have no CC, then you go Spell Armor. Level 10, Shadow Stalk, majority of the time. You go Starfall if you have like some kind of combo potential, or you need area of affected team fights because they have certain characters that just want a dogpile. So if they have a dogpile team comp, Starfall's okay, but Shadow Stalk is pretty good. Level 13, you go Harsh Moonlight because it's overpowered. Same with Power. And level 20, you go. If you went Starfall at level 20, Celestial Wrath isn't bad. If you went Shadowstalk at 10, Eye of the Huntress is good, but you can also go Shooting Star. It's not bad. You go Ice Blade Arrows versus carries like Genji and Tracer. Characters that dive the backline, even Zeratul, okay. You just want to mitigate their damage. So all those talents have a place. Next we have Uther. There's only really like one build that I think is really good on Uther, but in general Uther isn't the best character. He's a B tier healer. You go Silver Touch level 1 because your mana costs are so high. Holy Shock level 4. Level 7 you go Cleanse. You go Divine Shield at level 10 if you have one of those hyper carries that need it, like Greymane, Genji, stuff like that, or something that has to be de-shielded, for instance like a Malthael ult, Pyroblast, stuff like that. If none of the above, Divine Storm's pretty good. It's not a bad talent. Level 13, you can go either Blessed Champion or Well Met. They're both decent. The Spell Shield's not that good. 16, Beacon of Light is really good because when you Holy Shock people, you also heal for 200%. Benediction's also really good if you feel like you want to double up on the CC. And you also take Redemption at 20 always. The only time you go D-Shield upgrade is if you have a Genji with D-Blade and the 20 upgrade, and you know they're a really good player. Then this is definitely better than Redemption. Next we have Valeera. She only really has one build that makes her viable. So it's Crippling Poison at level 1, Relentless Strikes at 4, Mutilate at 7, either ult at 10 depending on the situation. Like if they have a lot of CC and mages, this is good. If you know you can like maneuver around the smoke bomb, that's also really good. So I'd say it's pretty close. 13 you go Strangle, 16 you go Seal Fate because it works off of your own silence, so you start doing insane damage. And 20 you either go Rupture or Elusiveness. Enveloping Shadows is decent too, but I feel like it's kind of like a trap talent, like you don't really need it. I think that Rupture is the best talent out of all of them, and Elusiveness, if they have certain team comps that can de-stealth you really easily, then it's okay.
Well met, friend.
Next we have Vala. Vala's auto attack build kind of died out, even with like the double support, it's not really that good. I'd say like the only build I think that's even very viable is Q at level 1, Q at level 4, Repeating Arrow, Strafe. I don't think Rain of Vengeance is any good. If you're picking Vala and you need to peel yourself, you're not picking Vala in an optimal spot. Strafe does so much damage, you should always take it. Level 13 Bloom, 80% of the time.
Should we not join the queue?
I don't think Siphoning Arrow is honestly good. I don't think Tempered Discipline is good. Level 16, you usually always take Frost Shot, and then 20, you have options. So if they have a lot of backliners and you've been getting, 3 or 4 minute strafes, that Siphon actually boosts your strafe damage by quite a bit, and it heals you for 25% of the additional damage and the base damage. So this 60 on its own, it's another 34. That's honestly almost 60%. So if you feel as though you need the burst damage, that Siphon's really good. If you don't, Farflight Clipper is really good. Only time you take Rancor is when you really need to end the game quickly, like you have an objective with like a full health immortal or a boss, and you're just trying to end the game. Otherwise, it's not good. Next, we have Variant. I'm only going to go over the Twin Blades build because it's the one I think it's good. It's actually Lion Small level 1 now, from what I see with the Twin Blades build. And then level 4 Twin Blades of Fury. Level 7 Second Wind. Level 10 I see Warbringer because they're trying to always solo the boss. Variant can actually solo boss even with Lion's Maw. Even after their nerf too. Level 13 Mortal Strike is usually the best talent. Shattering Throw if you're playing against Fenix. Juggernaut just really isn't that useful. Like usually just Mortal Strike always. 16, all 3 of them are good. I think Armor is the best. I think the Spell Power is second best. I think you take the Spell Power when you have a mage that's carrying your team. You take the Armor like in situations where you don't have too much spell damage. And the speed's good, but honestly these two are just too good. Level 20, honestly, a lot of these choices are good. Demoralizing Shot is honestly decent. Glory of the Alliance is also pretty good because it reduces your banners by 20 seconds and they're only 45. So they're up way more often, and then the healing regeneration effect is pretty insane. Frenzy's not bad either, so they're all pretty good.
Show respect.
Next we have White Mane, and there's only one build I think that's really good. So you go Clemency level 1, level 4 I think you always go High Inquisitor because you need it to not run out of mana. Level 7 you have the choice of Fanatical Power and Cleanse. I think Fanatical Power is usually better, but Cleanse is not bad. Depending on how much CC they have, you might need to take Cleanse. Level 10 you always take Scarlet Aegis no matter what. Level 13 Harsh Discipline. Level 16 you honestly have like options. Radiance isn't bad. None of these are that bad, but I think Radiance is the best talent, to be honest. Level 20 I think the upgrade is pretty good. If you have like one of those like one-shot team comps, Purge the Wicked's not bad either. But usually Scarlet Crusade is picked 90%. This is more like a 10% talent. Next we have Zool. Zool honestly only has one build. You either take Shackler, you either take Shackler or Backlash level 1. Backlash if you're trying to get damage on tanks. Shackler if you're just trying to survive as long as possible. You just go W level 4, W level 7, Mages at 10, and Rapid Harvest at 13. At level 16, you take the amplified damage because you're healing for the damage you deal. So it keeps you alive longer, and at the same time, vulnerabilities got buffed in the past. At level 20, you have options. I think that the Mortal Wound talent is actually pretty good. If you can just randomly like hit their whole team with it when nobody's paying attention, when you have your mages down, you might be able to stop some really big healing and just win a team fight with that. But honestly, Cold Hand on Death is also extremely good because of the passive and its active effect. And Talon's Edict just isn't really that good. It just doesn't have the value people think it does. Now we have Uriel. I think that the new best level 1 on Uriel is Light of the Carivore. I'm seeing that a lot more. Level 4, you have the option to go Gift of the Naru and the Freedom. Actually, all 3 of these talents are decent. The thing is, this talent got nerfed, so it's not as good. So one of these 2 talents might be decent. I kind of like Hand of Freedom when they have a lot of CC too, if you want to get rid of like slows and roots. Um, Level 7, you can take Righteous Momentum in a Soul Lane in certain matchups, like Sonya for instance, and I think even, maybe even Malthael, I'm not sure. Divine Seed's decent. This town doesn't really do that much. And Holy Avenger's okay. This was like the main talent that everybody would take. It's good in the Soul Lane as well. It's just I don't really know how useful it is anymore with the level 4 talent nerf. It's probably just a good talent for soul laning. Level 10, I think you always take Ardent Defender unless it's like Infernal Shrines or some weird map where you know you can stand in the armor the entire time. Or if you're like depending on winning the game with bosses and you need to stand on the boss point. Level 13, I think that Felon's Chosen is okay. I don't think Repentance is that good. Others, Peacekeeper is also okay. It's just preference on those two. Level 16, Templar's Verdict is pretty good. And these two talents are not that good. Divine Favor is okay. So it's between preference. I think Templar's Verdict's better. Level 20, Seraphim is pretty good. Word of the Glory is okay, but I don't think it's that good. These two are kind of not that good. I guess if you go Sacred Ground, you could go Hollow Ground, but I don't think it's that useful. Seraphim and Word of Glory seem like the best talents. Alright, next we have Zagara. I'll just basically go over both the builds quickly. So you go Infest level 1 if you're in a hard matchup. You go Volatile Acid if it's an easy matchup. If you went Infest level 1 and it's a hard matchup, you go Medusa Blades. If you're in an easy matchup, you can afford to go Serrated Spines, so you scale infinitely. Level 7, you go Baneling Massacre, no matter what. Level 10, you usually go Devouring Maw. If it's like Sky Temple, for instance, like if it's Tomb of the Spider Queen, you go Maw, right? If it's like, for instance, Sky Temple and you're going for a split push strategy, or Cursed Hollow, Nidus Network's okay, but you really need to get used to the playstyle before you take it, and it requires a good amount of practice. At 13, Hydralisk Transfusion is pretty good. If you have complete control and creep, the armor is really good. Like if they don't have heroes that can stop it, this is a really good talent as well. And I think it's more suited towards the Nidus Network. At 16, honestly, where is it? Mutalisk is the best talent, but honestly, Brood Expansion isn't terrible. If you're constantly like if you're in a game where you're just not really playing versus too many tanks, or like people are always killing your Mutalisk really quickly, Brood Expansion isn't terrible. But honestly, Mutalisk is usually the best pick. Corrosive Slab is not that good. And then level 20. I'd say that Tyrant Maw is okay. It's not really that good. I'd honestly take Fury of the Storm if you went Maw. And then if you went Nidus Network, you just go Endless Creep, because you can honestly just start putting creep anywhere on the map and get your Niduses out in like really good locations. Also, it becomes really hard to die on creep with the additional 10%. We have Zarya next. So the build I like the most with Zarya is you either go Feel the Heat or you go Demolitions Expert. So I think that Feel the Heat is good in a general setting where they have melee characters like Kerrigan and stuff like that you'll be getting value out of the talent. If you're on Braxis Holdout, I think you should always take Demolitions Expert, like if you're in the 4-man. Level 4, Defensive Shielding and Give Me 20 are both really good. If they're always focusing you, I'm the Strongest is also really good because it gives you more energy. Level 7, Pinpoint Accuracy or Explosive Barrier, one of the two. Pinpoint Accuracy if you've stacked your quest pretty quickly, and I've seen some people stack it before level 7. Explosive Barrier if you want to feel the heat. talent, just because it has synergy. You stay in the front and blow them up. Level 10, usually Expulsion Zone, so you can have boss control. You can take Graviton Surge if you have combo, like Wombo combo, but if you don't, Expulsion Zone is still really good. 13, Pain is temporary. It's really good if you're getting focused and killed, especially if you took I'm the Strongest at 13. Um, if they have a lot of mages, spell barrier isn't terrible. Unstoppable is okay depending on how much CC they have, so they're all pretty good. I think that endurance training is only good when you're snowballing really hard. Level 16 usually always game train. The slow is pretty good too in Q build, but I think game train's usually the best talent. If you have like a hyper carry like Illidan or Genji or Vala, for instance, the cleansing shield is incredibly good. So with hyper carries, you take this down. Otherwise, game train is also pretty good. Level 20 is usually always unyielding defender. Just getting the extra shield is super nice. Graviton Surge upgrade is okay, but again, only taking these talents for Wombo combo. But I think Unyielding Defender is the best talent list here. Next we have Zeratul. I think this is the last character, right? Oh no, there's Zul'jin too. So Zeratul only has one build that I think is really good for solo queue. I think the Nerazine build is better in competitive. And also in like lower tier games, but Q build just gets so much value that you can't really go any other build. I'll just go over it really quick. It's Q level 1, Q level 4, Wormhole at 7, Void Prism 10, and here's the tier that everybody messes up. They always take Mending Strike at 13. The best talent is Shroud of the Yadun at 13. And it's a matter of your playstyle. You're playing as a poke mage when you play Zeratul. Having a passive shield that regenerates is way better than a talent that requires you to all-in, which you're not going to be doing until level 20 anyways. Even at 16, when you get your big power spike, you're still a poke mage. At 20, obviously, you go Shadow Mending. I forgot to say, you always take Void Slash at 16 too. At 20, when you get your Shadow Mending, that's when you can be more like in the fight. But even then, you don't need the Mending Blades anymore because it gives you 60% healing on your spell damage. So yeah, lastly Zul'jin, and Zul'jin honestly has like a safe build and he has a dangerous build. So Headhunter is like a dangerous build because if you can't get the takedowns, it's honestly a useless talent, like finishing the quest. Bone Slicer is generally what you take level 1, level 4 you go Amani Hide, or yeah, you go Amani Hide. You don't honestly ever take what is it, Troll's Bloods ever. It's honestly between these two talents, but I like a Money Hide better. Voodoo Shuffle can sometimes be useful, but not really, depending on the situation. Level 7, you go Vicious Assault. Level 10 always ties Dingo, Guillotine's a troll talent. 13 Ensnare is extremely strong. 16, if you're playing against Garrosh, this is an extremely good talent. Wrong place, wrong time isn't bad either, but I don't really like it that much if you're not taking Arcanite Axes. Plus, also, I did say you take Vicious Assault, but you can also go Arcanite Axes. It's like preference a little bit. And at 20, you obviously go Amani Resilience. So that concludes the A through Z talent tier list. I'm gonna be putting like in the thumbnail all the like timestamps so you don't have to like scroll through to find where your favorite character is. And thank you everybody for watching.